Chapter 767. On Monday they were asked to work overtime. Therefore, those who did not prepare their drafts could only wait until they got home from work. There would be 4 chapters tomorrow on the 3rd, but they could not post them all at once. Please forgive me. The update time would be the same as before. 3 meals in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Another midnight snack. Alright, let me remind everyone of your monthly votes and recommendation votes. See you tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock a.m. Mwah. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 768. Xiaoheng grunted with an indifferent expression and didn't say anything else. He sat in the back seat of the car and turned his head to look at the night view outside for a while. On the imperial capital's highway at night, the tall street lights on the roadside flickered and formed a bright line. He remembered looking down from a fighter jet at night. The ground was brightly lit and dazzling, brighter than the stars and more beautiful than anything else. Every time he was in a bad mood he would test fly the latest fighter jet. Shuttling through the night sky and appearing and disappearing among the clouds, he would see the peaceful and beautiful scenery on the ground. No matter how great his worries were, they would disappear. However, such a beautiful night view was dull to him today. After a while, Xiaoheng withdrew his gaze and took out his phone to open his contacts. He pressed on Gu Nianji's profile picture and clicked send. Without thinking, he sent her a text message. No staying up late at night. After sending it, he felt it was too serious and too rigid. Considering Gu Nianji's current rebellious mentality toward him, he rubbed his fingers on the phone for a while before slowly adding, no staying up late at night. Gu Nianji sat in the passenger seat of Hijichu's car and tilted her head to discuss the arguments in her graduation thesis. She always felt that the arguments were insufficient and couldn't prove the point she wanted to make. Just as she was sorting out her thoughts, she suddenly felt the phone in her small bag vibrate a few times. A text message must have come in. She thought it was Ma Chichi. She took out her phone and swiped it open, only to find that it was a text from Xiaoheng. Staring at the first text from Xiaoheng, Gu Nianji couldn't help but sneer. She thought to herself, you're so nosy. Who are you? Do you still think you're my guardian? I'm already an adult. Can you please talk nicely? She was cursing silently and was about to turn off her phone when she saw the second text from Xiaoheng. It's not good for your health. Gu Nianji was speechless. Her fingers paused and she almost couldn't keep the sneer on her face. Xiaoheng was a man of his word and had a cold personality. Sending a text like this was probably the limit for him, right? Gu Nianji felt her nose sting. She looked at the phone for a while and decisively put it back in her small bag. Looking at the small bag, she realized that she had casually taken the new Hermes bag that Xiaoheng had given her. Gu Nianji stared at the small bag for a while, then crossed her arms and leaned back in her seat. She closed her eyes to rest. Hijichu turned to look at her. You didn't sleep last night? Don't stay up late in the future. If you can't make it in time, you can graduate half a year later. No, I've already made plans. Gu Nianji shook her head and stubbornly refused. Okay, take care of yourself. Hijichu stopped trying to persuade her to give up. You have to have a plan when you do things. Don't act on impulse. Got it. Thank you, Professor He. Gu Nianji had always respected Hijichu as a teacher. This drove him crazy, but he didn't know what to do to get rid of the mountain of respect for her teacher that stood between them. Fortunately, he still remembered that more haste, less speed when he first found Gu Nianji. After calming himself down, Hijichu asked again, what are you planning to give Miss Tan for her birthday? Gu Nianji didn't even open her eyes. She calmly said, a red packet. Then she added, 250 yuan. Hijichu was speechless. He looked at Gu Nianji from the corner of his eyes, a faint smile in his shimmering, sultry eyes. You really dare to give it to her? Why wouldn't I dare? I also prepared a red packet for Gu Yanran as a reward for her hard work. Gu Nianji smiled. 250 yuan per person. Gu Nianji was wide awake from Hijichu's words. What about you? What did Professor He give? Before Hijichu could answer, Gu Nianji asked curiously, is Gu Yanran very close to Professor He? Or are you very close to the Tans and the Kais? Otherwise, why would she want to give Hijichu an invitation to Tan Gairan's birthday party? Hijichu looked at Gu Nianji with a complicated expression. You think I'm close to them? Yes. Gu Nianji nodded honestly. Gu Yanran and your teaching assistant, Wen Shuyi, don't even need to be mentioned. They're as close as sworn sisters. Since they're so close, there's no reason you wouldn't be close to Gu Yanran, right? Gu Nianji smiled slyly. She used a little trick here and didn't directly answer Hijichu's question. Instead, she used circumstantial evidence to indirectly prove her point. It was actually a little bit of sophistry. Of course, Hijichu heard it immediately, but he didn't directly refute it. Instead he said, yes, they're quite close. However, isn't it wrong to directly infer that I'm close to Gu Yenran just because they're close? What are you hinting at? That I have an unusual relationship with Wen Shui, or that I'm secretly in contact with Gu Yenran? Gu Nianji blushed instantly. Her little trick had been discovered, and she was directly rebuked. Professor He was indeed Professor He. She was still too inexperienced. Gu Nianji only retorted for a while before returning to normal. She giggled and said, actually, I had my suspicions. Did he have an unusual relationship with Wen Shui, or was he secretly in contact with Gu Yenran? Hijichu couldn't help but want to sneer. His voice quickly cooled. Ha, in your eyes, am I such a lowly person? I'm only fit to interact with these people? You could basically tell what kind of person a person was from their circle of friends. Gu Nianji almost choked on her own words. She immediately apologized. I'm sorry, Professor He. I was wrong. I shouldn't have thought that way. You already thought what you shouldn't have. Hijichu was furious. He felt like his anger was endless, but he had nowhere to vent it. He had almost given up everything to find Gu Nianji, but he could only face this kind of situation. He couldn't move forward, nor could he retreat. He couldn't even explain himself. In his rage, Hijichu suddenly honked the car horn to vent his anger. Gu Nianji quickly covered her ears. Professor He, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Can you not be angry? The honking was quite scary. The cars around them all moved out of the way. They didn't know what was wrong with the car. Yin Shixiang had been driving closely behind Hijichu and Gu Nianji the entire time. He also heard the car in front of them honking like crazy. What's wrong? What happened? Ma Chichi looked forward curiously. Is that Professor He and Yanji's car? Yes. Chase after them and force them to stop. Hua Xiaoheng put down the phone in his hand and calmly ordered Yin Shixiang. Yes, Chief, Yin Shixiang replied instinctively. He then said to Ma Chichi, sit tight. He stepped on the accelerator, and their Bentley suddenly accelerated like an arrow released from a bow. Hijichu honked for a while in front and finally felt a little better. Just as he moved his hand away, he saw Hua Xiaoheng's car in the rearview mirror catching up to them. Hijichu was still angry. Although he had honked to vent his anger, it was far from enough. Seeing that Hua Xiaoheng wanted to force him to stop was exactly what he wanted. He said to Gu Nianji, sit tight. Then he slammed his foot on the accelerator. Their car roared, and Gu Nianji swore that in that instant she felt like the car was really going to leave the ground and fly. Yin Shixiang was just about to catch up to the car in front of them when he realized that the car had shot forward almost in the blink of an eye. The sudden acceleration was shockingly fast, and it even made a series of loud rumbling sounds like thunder. Hua Xiaoheng's expression suddenly changed. He sat up abruptly and spat out two words through his teeth. Sonic boom. Yin Shixiang. Professor He, are you going to fly into the sky? Only a supersonic fighter jet would have the sonic boom effect of driving a car. No wonder they disappeared in the blink of an eye. They might have already arrived at the Prime Minister's official residence at 32 Willow Alley. Ma Chichi tightly gripped the safety handle on the roof of the car. She was dizzy from the jolting and almost vomited. Yin Shixiang looked at her and was a bit worried. He involuntarily relaxed the accelerator and said to the rearview mirror, Hua Xiao, do we still chase? Hua Xiaoheng slowly leaned back and looked in the direction where Hijichu's car had disappeared. After a while he finally said, no need. However, although Yin Shixiang didn't need to chase, Hua Xiaoheng had already sent an encrypted message to the Special Operations Forces informant in the Prime Minister's official residence. Pay attention to a silver-gray Bentley. The license plate number is XXXXX. Find an opportunity to draw the engine diagram. The message was also coded, so even if it was intercepted, they wouldn't understand what it meant. This was the first watch. Today was the fourth watch. Now the monthly tickets are doubled. Everyone vote quickly. There are also recommendation tickets. Monthly tickets of 1,500 plus updates at 1 p.m. Third watch at 7 p.m. Monthly tickets of 2,000 plus updates at 11 p.m. P.S. Thank you to Only Reading Makes People Happy in Life for your 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Moi. Chapter 769. Yin Shixiang had guessed correctly. Hijichu's car had already sped to the Prime Minister's official residence. It was a Saturday night in the imperial capital, so although the highway wasn't crowded, the speed was still shocking. Gunyenji's entire body was shaking when she got out of the car. The way Hijichu had driven just now was too scary. More importantly, how could that car drive at such a speed? It was inhuman. Hijichu's anger finally dissipated after speeding for a whole car. However, seeing Gunyenji's pale face and how she couldn't even walk properly, he felt guilty. He walked over and extended his arm to Gunyenji. "Can you still walk? Do you want to give me a ride in?" Gunyenji originally wanted to say no in a very courageous manner, but she hadn't even taken 2 steps when she felt the world spin around her. She reflexively grabbed Hijichu's arm and stood still. "Professor He, are you trying to murder me?" Gunyenji lowered her voice and gritted her teeth. "Your car really can fly." That was definitely not a figure of speech. "I'm sorry." Hijichu pursed his lips. "I didn't control my emotions well." He turned to look at his car and knew he had already been exposed in front of Huo Xiaoheng. With Huo Xiaoheng's shrewdness and stubbornness toward engines, he had probably already arranged for people to prepare to tear his car apart. Hijichu reached back to touch the hood of his car, then put his hand in his pocket to grab the car key and quickly pressed the self-destruct button. A muffled bang immediately came from the hood of the Bentley, and a few wisps of faint white smoke flowed out from the gap in the hood. It was quickly dispersed by the late autumn night wind in the imperial capital. Hijichu smiled and turned to lead Gunyenji into the Prime Minister's official residence. Gunyenji didn't use the special invitation Gu Yenran had given her. Instead, she used the normal invitation Yin Shixiang had given her and Ma Chichi. She noticed that Hijichu's invitation was also the normal kind without a name. Even with how much Gu Yenran sucked up to Hijichu, she didn't give him a special invitation with her name printed on it. This was enough to prove that the invitation Gu Yenran gave Gunyenji had a special meaning. Therefore, she once again confirmed that she had made the right decision not to use the invitation that Gu Yenran had specially given her. Gunyenji composed herself and smiled as she followed Hijichu to the entrance of the Prime Minister's official residence. There were security personnel carrying equipment to conduct a security check. The 2 of them lined up and placed the gifts on the long table at the side. There were professionals there to register and receive Tangairen's birthday gifts. Like Gunyenji, Hijichu also sent red packets. However, it was much bulkier than Gunyenji's small 250 renminbi red packet. After passing the security check, the 2 of them passed through the long corridor and walked towards the building where the Prime Minister's family lived. There were a total of 3 rows of buildings in the Prime Minister's residence, arranged in the shape of the king character. The Prime Minister's family lived in the middle of the second horizontal bar. The first building was the main meeting room. Most of the cabinet meetings were held here. After passing through the conference building's long corridor, they arrived at the second row of the Wang character. This small building was where the Prime Minister's family lived. It was considered the Prime Minister's privacy, and Huo Xiaoheng's methods could not be used here. The third and final building was the Prime Minister's office building. His aides and staff were all in the third building. Tangairen's birthday banquet was considered a family banquet, so it couldn't be used in the first building. Of course, it couldn't be used in the third building. It could only be held in the second building where the Prime Minister's family lived. This was Gunyenji's second time here. The first time she came, Hijichu was also here. At the time, Prime Minister Dou's family lived here. Gunyenji couldn't help but think of Dou Qingyan. She should still be in prison, right? When she thought of Dou Qingyan, she thought of Yamaguchi Aiko, or Yamaguchi Yuko. And this person seemed to have a close relationship with Gu Yenran. When she thought of this, Gunyenji felt that she should find an opportunity to visit Dou Qingyan in prison. But what reason could she find? She wasn't related to Dou Qingyan, nor was she her lawyer. It wouldn't be easy to apply to visit her. If there really was no other way, she could only ask Brother Xiong and Brother Zhe for help. Gunyenji pondered as she followed Hijichu into the building where the Prime Minister's family lived. As soon as she looked up, she was stunned by the decorations inside. She saw that the wall facing the main door was decorated with pure white lilies to form the shape of a heart. In the center of the heart was a huge photo of Tanguiren that was as tall as the wall. In the photo, Tanguiren was wearing a white princess dress and a diamond crown on her head. This diamond crown wasn't the transparent diamond crown Tanguiren had worn at the Prime Minister's inauguration. It was a pink diamond crown in the shape of a real crown. It looked even more exquisite and precious than the diamond crown she had worn that day. It also made her look more like a little princess. Hijichu was also shocked when he saw the pink diamond crown in the photo. A hint of surprise flashed across his usually cold and aloof face. His shimmering almond-shaped eyes stared at the pink diamond crown for a long time, then quickly swept past the top of Gu Nianji's head with a hint of cautious consideration and a sigh of disappointment. Gu Nianji was also lost in thought as she looked at Tangairen's photo. She felt that there was something in Tangairen's photo that attracted her attention. In the photo, Tangairen was smiling innocently at the camera. The rarest thing was that there wasn't a trace of impurity in her eyes. She was as bright and beautiful as a newborn baby. It was very rare for a 25-year-old girl to maintain such a pure heart. Gu Nianji stood under the lily photo wall and sighed silently. Only a girl who had been spoiled by her parents since she was young and lived a comfortable life would have such carefree eyes. However, Gu Nianji felt that it had nothing to do with one's family environment or whether one's parents were still alive. This was probably a failure of family education. When Gu Nianji stood under the lily photo wall and looked up quietly, many people also saw her. Gu Yanran saw Gu Nianji in the stairwell on the second floor. She was very surprised that no one had informed her of Gu Nianji's arrival. According to her plan, the staff responsible for reception at the door would immediately send her a message as soon as Gu Nianji arrived with the specially made invitation. She would then wait at the door to stop her. However, she didn't know what went wrong, but the first step was no longer possible. When she saw the handsome Hijichu standing beside Gu Nianji again, Gu Yanran couldn't help but grip the railing on the second floor tightly. Without Huo Xiaoheng, she actually had Hijichu. This Gu Nianji was really capable. But so what if she had Hijichu? This wasn't the United States. There was a trace of coldness in Gu Yanran's gentle eyes. In the Huaxia Empire, Gu Nianji's only backer, Huo Xiaoheng, was no longer there. She, on the other hand, had Prime Minister Tan as a huge backer. The outcome of their battle had already been decided, and today was the day she could hold her head high. If only she could expose Gu Nianji's true colors. The more Gu Yanran thought about it, the more agitated she became, and her usually gentle and charming face revealed a slightly fierce expression. She looked at Gu Nianji quietly for a while, and when she looked away, she suddenly saw the reflection of herself gritting her teeth in the mirror-like pillar in front of her. Shocked, she quickly patted her face and forced an extremely gentle smile before slowly walking to Tangairen's room. What a pity, Gu Yanran sighed internally and pushed open the door to Tangairen's bedroom. Her face was already full of smiles. Little darling, the banquet is about to start. Are you ready? When Huo Xiaoheng followed Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi to the inner hall of the Prime Minister's official residence, he also immediately saw Gu Nianji standing under the lily photo wall looking up. She had grown a bit taller and was wearing a smart pantsuit. Her seaweed-like hair flowed down her back, and a pair of mid-calf boots made her legs look even longer and more androgynous. Only the puffy sleeves of her mid-century neckcloth top and the front of her waist added a bit of feminine charm to her. It clearly wasn't a tight-fitting outfit, but from the side, the curves of her undulating like mountains were simply breathtaking. Huo Xiaoheng took one look, and a trace of heat rose in his heart. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down and his eyes dimmed slightly. It was like there was a fire that had just burned out. Although it was only ashes, it was still shockingly hot. Without realizing it, he walked to Gu Nianji's side and clasped his hands behind his back. He said calmly, "Nianji, your house has already been renovated. Do you want to go take a look after the banquet?" Gu Nianji was speechless. She really wanted to refuse, but what could she say? The corners of her eyes lifted slightly, and the lilies on the wall were reflected in her starry eyes. A calm and happy smile appeared on her delicate face. "Huo Xiao, it's very late now. Maybe another day." Gu Nianji secretly gave herself a thumbs up for the polite reply. She never thought that she would one day say such a tactful and appropriate refusal in front of Huo Xiaoheng. Hijichu heard it clearly from the side, and an appropriate smile appeared on his aloof face. He bowed slightly to Huo Xiaoheng. Huo Xiao actually came to Miss Tan's birthday banquet as well. You truly live up to your reputation as a flower protector. Coming to the birthday banquet means you're a flower protector? Then Professor, he is also here to protect Miss Tan? Huo Xiaoheng usually didn't pay attention to this kind of nonsense, but he knew that this was one of the things that bothered Gu Nianji, so he refuted it anyway. Ma Qiqi and Yin Shixiang, who were standing behind the three men, watched in horror as Hijichu and Huo Xiaoheng exchanged tit for tat. "Big Xiong, aren't you going to go persuade her?" Ma Qiqi quietly nudged Yin Shixiang and suggested a bad idea. "How about I go ask Nianji to leave? Don't be a busybody." Yin Shixiang glared at her and quickly glanced around the hall. He pulled Ma Qiqi away. "There are more and more people here. Let's leave first." Before he left, he still reminded the three people standing under the lily photo wall. "Huo Xiao and Nianji, Professor, we're going over there." He pointed to the sofa in the corner behind the greenery by the wall. There was still a buffet of drinks and food on the long table against the wall. Ma Chichi also saw it and her eyes instantly lit up. But before the two of them reached the wall, Yin Shixiang ran into a familiar face. Big Xiong? Is that you? A pleasantly surprised voice came from behind them. It was familiar with a hint of intimacy. It was Jin Wani. Yin Shixiang couldn't help but roll his eyes in the air. This was the second night watch, and the monthly ticket of 1,500 plus updates had arrived. Today was the fourth night watch. Now the monthly ticket is double, so vote quickly, dear ones. There are also recommendation tickets. 7 p.m. the third night watch. 11 p.m. the monthly ticket of 2,000 plus updates. P.S. It's the 515 fan day. Dear ones can go and receive a certain Hans fan title, Cambrian Alliance. The earlier you receive it, the less treasure balls you need. Dear ones, please move fast. Moi. Chapter 770. Jin Wani didn't hide her emotions at all. Even Ma Chichi, who was more insensitive, realized that something was wrong. She turned around and frowned. Yin Shixiang could only smile sheepishly as he turned around and nodded to Jin Wani. Oh, it's Lawyer Jin. Are you here to celebrate Miss Tan's birthday? Wasn't that obvious? Today was Tangairen's birthday party. Jin Wani couldn't help but want to roll her eyes, but when she saw that Yin Shixiang kept glancing at the bright and tall young woman beside him, she felt a little uncomfortable. It was as if the cabbage he had set his eyes on for a long time was going to be eaten by a pig. But before she could speak again, Yin Shixiang had already taken Ma Chichi's hand and said, Chichi, this is Lawyer Jin, the chief legal representative that Prime Minister Tan hired for his wife. He then said to Jin Wani, this is Chichi. With such an introduction, it was clear who was close and who was distant. Ma Chichi immediately became happy. She looked at Jin Wani for a while and said with a smile, Lawyer Jin is prettier than on TV. Yeah, you should learn from her. Lawyer Jin is your senior. Yin Shixiang squeezed Ma Chichi's hand with a smile and said to Jin Wani, Lawyer Jin, we won't disturb you any further. With that, he pulled Ma Chichi's hand and walked over to the buffet table. Jin Wani watched them leave awkwardly and quickly glanced around. Fortunately, everyone's eyes were on the lily wall, so no one noticed her. As soon as He Jichu said, flower protector, Hua Xiaoheng's gaze fell on Gu Nianji's face. Unfortunately, Gu Nianji's cultivation had indeed improved a lot. It was already difficult for him to read her emotions from her expression. Maybe I'm just better at hiding. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes darkened. He wondered if he had been too lenient with her. If he allowed her to be willful like this, would the knot in her heart become deeply rooted and become an excuse to reject him? He Jichu had always scoffed at Hua Xiaoheng's words, so he sneered and was about to retort when a staff member from the office of the Prime Minister rushed over and said to him, You are Mr. He? Your car spontaneously combusted in the parking lot, and now only a pile of ashes is left. He Jichu. He turned to Gu Nianji and said, I'll go out and take a look. Wait for me here. Gu Nianji nodded obediently. When He Jichu looked at Hua Xiaoheng again, he already had a hint of an unfair advantage. His shimmering almond-shaped eyes twinkled with a hint of a smile as he turned to leave quickly. After He Jichu left, Gu Nianji also wanted to leave. Although Hua Xiaoheng wasn't looking at her, he accurately reached out and grabbed her arm. He said slowly, Nianji, do you remember what you promised me? Gu Nianji was taken aback. She wanted to elegantly shake off Hua Xiaoheng's hand that was grabbing her arm, but she didn't expect to be unable to free herself. She couldn't help but whisper, Let go of me. Did you forget what you promised me? Your memory is getting worse. Tell me, how should I punish you? Hua Xiaoheng held her arm tightly and refused to let go. Leaning forward slightly, he moved closer to her ear. She could feel his breath on her face. It was so hot that her face was burning up. He lowered his voice even more. Mrs. Hua? Mrs. Hua? When Gu Nianji heard this, her small, snow-white face turned completely red. It was as if she had put on a layer of blush. Even the corners of her eyes and the tips of her eyebrows were stained with rouge. You said that you wouldn't make it public. You said that if I didn't agree, no one else would know. Hua Xiaoheng, you're going back on your word. Gu Nianji was really panicking. Hua Xiaoheng's words, Mrs. Hua? Mrs. Hua? This made her feel ashamed and embarrassed, but she did not dare to cry out loud. She lowered her voice to a very, very low volume, with a bit of huskiness coming from her throat, revealing a natural charm that she was unaware of. In her panic, she used more strength. If she used all her strength to struggle, Hua Xiaoheng would still be able to restrain her. However, he was a bit worried that she would disregard everything and break her own arm. Hua Xiaoheng had no choice but to wrap his other arm around Gu Nianji's waist. He exerted a bit of strength in his arms and almost imprisoned her entire body in his embrace. Only then was she unable to move. In the eyes of bystanders, they looked like a perfect couple standing under a wall of beautiful lilies, snuggling up to each other. The two of them were so good-looking that everyone's attention was involuntarily drawn to them. They almost forgot who the birthday girl in the photo on the wall was. There were more and more people in the hall, and their curious gazes were like searchlights that could clearly see the two of them. Gu Nianji was so embarrassed that she couldn't even lift her head. She had no choice. Fortunately, she still remembered that Hua Xiaoheng was a person who could be persuaded but not cowed. She could only plead softly, "Hua Xiao, don't be like this. I still have to be a decent person. Did you forget what you promised me?" "I didn't forget, but you forgot, so I had to forget too." Hua Xiaoheng looked down at Gu Nianji, who was surprisingly well behaved in his arms. His expression was indifferent, as if he didn't feel that they were overpowering the host at all. Gu Nianji sighed, "Hua Xiao, let go. We can talk this out." "Okay, then what did you promise me?" "Gu Nianji, can't say it? You promised me that you would give me another chance." Hua Xiaoheng said this carelessly, his expression as calm as ever. Gu Nianji frowned. "I gave it? What else are you dissatisfied with?" "Gave it? You didn't pick up my calls, didn't get in my car, and acted like you didn't see me. You call that giving?" Hua Xiaoheng let go of her and took a step back. His expression was cold as he said, "You're not allowed to not pick up my calls in the future." Gu Nianji laughed inwardly, but seeing that they were in public, she had to give Hua Xiaoheng some face, so she nodded obediently. I will. If I don't pick up the chief's call, would I be looking for death?" Hua Xiaoheng. He wanted to say a few more words, but at that moment his Bluetooth headset had already sent a message from an insider, saying that He Zichu's car had suddenly self-destructed, but under such tight surveillance, they couldn't find any clues about the saboteur. And this situation was almost exactly the same as the car that Gu Nianji was in 7 years ago suddenly self-destructed. Hua Xiaoheng's heart tightened and he looked at Gu Nianji. "Come back to the new house with me after tonight." With a solemn expression, he turned and strode away. Gu Nianji looked at Hua Xiaoheng's back with some dismay, and she was practically roaring in her heart, "That's my house, my second-hand house. Don't use the word new house. It's so ambiguous." But at least the two of them had left, so Gu Nianji could finally breathe a sigh of relief. She looked up again and carefully examined the huge photo of Tanguran. She didn't know why, but she felt that there was something familiar in Tanguran's photo. What was it? Her gaze wandered over the photo, and finally stopped on the pink diamond crown on Tanguran's head. Yes, after looking at everything in the photo, the only thing that attracted her was the pink diamond crown. Pink diamonds were the most precious of all diamonds because natural pink diamonds were very rare. The rarer something was, the more expensive it was, so the price of pink diamonds naturally became the top of all diamonds. But the strange thing was she wasn't someone who loved jewelry, so why did she feel a piercing pain in her heart when she saw Tanguran's pink diamond crown? Gu Nianji rubbed her chest and felt her heart beating even more vigorously than usual. She looked at the pink diamond crown in Tanguran's photo, and the more she looked at it, the more familiar it seemed. Finally, she took out her phone and took a high-resolution photo of the pink diamond in the photo. Then she walked to the sofa in the corner behind the greenery by the wall and sat down. She began to use the software on her phone to cut, edit, and color. When the image was abnormally clear and complete, she uploaded it to a search engine that specialized in image searches for a quick search. She didn't know if it was because pink diamond jewelry was too rare, but Gu Nianji didn't get any results in the first round of image searches. That was too unusual. Gu Nianji felt that with Tanguran's family background and status, there was no way she would wear a fake pink diamond crown. Therefore, it could be assumed that the pink diamond crown was real. But if it was true, such an exquisite pink diamond crown, the heart-shaped bright pink main diamond was almost as big as a mahjong tile. Such a pure and flawless natural pink diamond with rich colors and high saturation couldn't be a nameless person. But why couldn't she find it on the internet? Gu Nianji immediately thought that there could be two reasons. One was that the pink diamond crown had always been a family heirloom and had never been publicly shown. Perhaps it was Tanguran's first time wearing it, just like her stolen diamond crown. The second reason was that her family had custom-made it for her. Custom-made items usually had extremely high levels of confidentiality and privacy. That also explained why it couldn't be found on the internet in a blind search. But if it was custom-made, such a large pink diamond would definitely have to be purchased from an auction house. Normal jewelers wouldn't sell such a large pink diamond alone. Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. She changed the direction of her search and specifically searched the websites of the top 10 auction houses on the Blue Planet. That was because many websites had blocked the possibility of blind searches from the outside world for security reasons. Therefore, if she wanted to search for something, she had to go directly to their websites. Gu Nianji's search actually found this pink diamond crown on Christie's auction website. It turned out that this was a pink diamond crown that had once belonged to Tsarina Catherine of Russia. It was a betrothal gift from her mother-in-law, Tsarina Elizabeth. According to legend, pink diamonds were the stones of love. Any lover who owned a pink diamond would definitely live a happy and sweet life. And this pink diamond crown had been bought by an anonymous buyer at Christie's auction house for a sky-high price of $70 million $18 years ago. The $70 million $18 years ago couldn't be compared to the $70 million now. Gu Nianji looked at the auction date of the pink diamond crown on Christie's auction website and pursed her plump lips tightly. Because the date of the auction was her birthday. On that day 18 years ago she had just turned 1 year old. It was the third watch. Today was the fourth watch. Now the monthly tickets are doubled. Dear ones, vote quickly. There are also recommendation tickets. At 11 p.m. the monthly tickets will be 2,000 plus watch. P.S. It's the 515 fan day. Dear ones, you can go and claim my fan title, Cambrian Alliance. The earlier you claim it, the less treasure balls you need. Dear ones, you have to act fast. Moi. Chapter 771. Gu Nianji silently looked at the Christie's website record, her fingers constantly scrolling across her phone. She really wanted to know who the anonymous buyer was. Why would this pink diamond crown appear on Tangyran's head? Zhao Liangzi had taught her about the internet as well as the principles of hackers and hackers. They prioritized national interests, but they couldn't ignore all laws just because they were skilled. She also couldn't use the knowledge he had taught her to commit crimes for personal gain. Gu Nianji had always been obedient, but this time she couldn't help it. She thought that she really wanted to know the identity of the anonymous buyer, but she didn't want to harm the Christie's auction house. Gu Nianji knew that the so-called anonymous buyer was only anonymous to the public. It was impossible to be anonymous to the auction house. And the auction house respected the buyer's privacy very much. If the buyer didn't want to reveal their identity, they would never do so. So to find out who the anonymous buyer was, the only way was to hack into the Christie's auction house website and enter their internal system. Gu Nianji didn't have any other tools except her phone, but that was enough. As long as the Christie's auction house website didn't have strong security like the German Federal Intelligence Service, she would be able to crack the external system. Sitting alone on the sofa in the corner behind the plants, Gu Nianji's entire attention was focused on the phone in her hand. However, in some people's eyes, she was just a wallflower that no one cared about. For example, Gu Yanran took the opportunity when Tangyran was changing to come out and see that Hijichu was gone. She only saw Gu Nianji sitting on the sofa behind the plants in the corner of the hall, playing with her phone alone. Gu Yanran really wanted to burst into laughter seeing that lonely figure. She hadn't seen Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng's behavior under the lily wall, and no one had mentioned it to her. Therefore, she didn't doubt the authenticity of Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng's breakup. Of course, Gu Nianji wasn't in the mood to think about such nonsense. In her heart, she had indeed broken up with Hua Xiaoheng, and now he was pursuing her again. It was up to her whether she accepted it or not. As for what other people thought, it was none of their business. Gu Nianji's fingers danced on her phone as she typed out a series of commands, bypassing each barrier and solving each password. Finally, after 10 minutes, she cracked the Christie's auction house's intranet and entered their back-end program. Gaining access to the back-end was tantamount to gaining access to all of Christie's auction house's industry secrets. However, Gu Nianji firmly remembered what Zhao Liangzi had told her. She didn't pay attention to anything else from Christie's. She only wanted to find out who had won the pink diamond crown of Russian Tsar Catherine 18 years ago for a high price of $70 million. She widened her eyes and concentrated on searching for records on Christie's website. It didn't take long before she found the buyer who hadn't been announced. His English name was Kevin Ku. Gu Nianji's hands couldn't stop trembling. Wasn't that the English name of her vegetable father, Gu Xiangguan? She searched carefully, but there was no other information on the website that could prove that this Kevin Ku was Gu Xiangguan. After all, this name was too common and there were people with the same name and surname. She continued reading. In the end, there was an additional note on the purchase record. It said that the buyer had requested Christie's auction house to use the best diamond engraver to engrave the words, "To Sirius, my little darling on the inside of the pink diamond crown. Sirius. Wasn't that the English name of the youngest daughter of the Gu family, Gu Nianji, when she went to Barbados? That was why she later used Sirius as her English name. If she had seen Kevin Ku earlier, she could have guessed that it was a duplicate name. But now that she saw a person named Kevin Ku buy a pink diamond crown for his daughter, Sirius, she was certain. What were the odds that there was another father and daughter named Kevin Ku and Sirius in this world besides her and Gu Xiangwen? It was almost zero. Therefore, this pink diamond crown had been personally purchased by her father, Gu Xiangwen, from Christie's auction house 18 years ago. From the date of purchase, it must have been for his daughter's first birthday. Gu Nianji stared fixedly at the record. She read each word many times. The unknown void in her heart seemed to be slowly being filled. She didn't have any memories of her parents, but in that moment she suddenly experienced her parents' sincere love for her. They were doing their best to give the best things to their beloved daughter, right? Gu Nianji caressed the words "to Sirius, my little darling" on her phone, and tears gradually welled up in her eyes. Dad. Mom? She called out softly. She no longer felt unfamiliar with these two terms of address. She looked up, took a deep breath and looked back at the huge wall of photos. Gu Nianji now believed that Gu Xiangwen must be her biological father. There couldn't be any other choice. As for the vegetative Gu Xiangwen, they had tried so hard to save from Barbados, his DNA didn't match hers. It only matched Gu Yanran's. This only proved that the person was Gu Yanran's biological father, but it didn't prove that the person was Gu Xiangwen. Also, Gu Yanran had given something that belonged to her to someone else as a favor. This was something her parents had left for her. It was easy to prove it. She just had to look at the serial number on the inside of the pink diamond crown and see if it was engraved with the words. Gu Nianji sat on the sofa and pondered. Ma Chichi came over and asked curiously, "Nianji? Are you hungry? Why do you keep playing on your phone?" Gu Nianji looked up at Ma Chichi and smiled at her. "I'm not hungry." Just then, a loud commotion came from behind them. The two of them looked back together. In the spacious hall, the crowded crowd parted to make a path. Tan Guirin, wearing a pink diamond crown and a pink princess dress, was smiling and waving at everyone on the spiral staircase from the second floor. Prime Minister Tan wore a black tuxedo and stood behind Tan Guirin energetically. He wore gold-rimmed glasses on his fair face and looked very refined. Gu Yanran wore a simple black Versace evening gown and stood beside Prime Minister Tan. Her gentle and charming appearance was very moving. The two of them stood behind Tan Guirin like a pair of parents. However, Gu Nianji's gaze was directly attracted to the pink diamond crown on Tan Guirin's head. She had already been unable to look away from the photos. Now that she saw the real thing, all of her attention was glued to the pink diamond crown. That was hers. There was a voice in the depths of her heart that kept screaming, making it impossible for her to escape. She now completely believed that Gu Xiangwen was her biological father. It was not like what Gu Yanran had said, where she was an adopted daughter and Gu Yanran was the biological daughter. Gu Nianji couldn't think of any reason why a father would buy such a rare treasure for his 1-year-old adopted daughter at an exorbitant price. She had to be her father's biological daughter, and her father must have loved her mother deeply. That was why he loved the young Gu Nianji like a treasure. This was the 4th update. Monthly tickets of 2,000 plus updates were delivered. Today was the 4th update. Now the monthly tickets are doubled. Everyone vote quickly. There are also recommendation tickets. P.S. It's the 515 fan day. Everyone, you can go and receive a certain Hans fan title, Cambrian Alliance. The earlier you receive it, the less treasure balls you need. Everyone be quick. Moi. Chapter 772. This feeling was purely Gu Nianji's intuition, or rather, it was a child's intuition towards her biological parents. Gu Nianji stood beside Ma Chichi and stared eagerly at the pink diamond crown on Tan Guirin's head. She gripped her phone tightly. However, when Gu Yanran's smug and disdainful gaze swept over, it was like a bucket of ice water had been poured over Gu Nianji's head. She suddenly became alert. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and slowly adjusted her breathing to calm herself down. Yes, she couldn't be impulsive. It was like fighting a lawsuit. Intuition alone wasn't enough. You had to use concrete evidence to convince others when arguing in court. At the same time, you had to use strict logic to prove that your reasoning was correct. This was a puzzle. It didn't matter if you knew what it looked like. You had to complete the puzzle in order to prove to others what it really looked like. Gu Nianji didn't have any childlike feelings towards the man in a vegetative state on the hospital bed. At the time she thought she was a bit cold. She didn't feel anything when she watched her own father become a vegetable. However, she felt different about the name Gu Xiangwen. It was deeply rooted in her memory. Even though she had lost her memory and didn't even remember what he looked like, she had a different feeling towards the name. Looking at the pink diamond crown, Gu Xiangwen's name surfaced from her hazy subconscious. It gradually took shape and became an unbreakable fortress in the bottom of her heart. It could shelter her from the wind and rain, giving her a branch to rely on. It was just a name, but it made her feel like she had found her roots. She was no longer someone without a past. So the first thing she needed to do now was to settle the family assets with Gu Yanran. Because she still couldn't prove that the Gu Xiangwen, in a vegetative state on the hospital bed, was fake, she could use her identity as the daughter of the Gu family to formally ask Gu Yanran for an equal share of the family assets. She had been away from home for 7 years. In those 7 years, the Gu family was controlled by Gu Yanran. She treated Gu Nianji like she didn't exist. Gu Nianji had previously mentioned asking Gu Yanran for the family assets, but Gu Yanran had never directly responded. Gu Nianji also didn't pursue it. At that time, she had no feelings for the Gu family. Also, she knew that her DNA didn't match with Gu Xiangwen, and that she was the adopted daughter of the Gu family. Therefore, she had even less desire to fight Gu Yanran for the family assets. But it was different now. She was convinced that she was Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter. Before she could find any evidence, she had to cut off Gu Yanran's dirty hands. What right did Gu Yanran have to curry favor with the Wuxia Empire? Of course, it was with the Gu family's money and Gu Nianji's assets. He had taken advantage of her, Gu Nianji, and still wanted to escape unscathed? Would she agree to ask for her expertise? Gu Nianji slowly raised her head and smiled at Gu Yanran, who was high up on the spiral staircase. Her lips curled into an amused smile. She folded her arms and even began to tap her feet. In the front hall, Tan Guirin held up her dress with a wide smile as she walked down the steps to the center of the hall. Gu Yanran and Prime Minister Tan smiled at each other and followed him down the steps. The two of them continued to stand behind Tan Guirin. Gu Yanran clapped her hands and a young female staff member wearing a white shirt and black pants pushed a dining cart over. On the dining car, a 5-tiered cake with rainbow colors was displayed in front of everyone. The hall was filled with applause and praises. "Birthday girl, cut the cake. Birthday girl, cut the cake." Tan Guirin turned to look at Gu Yanran with a smile and said sincerely, "Thank you, Miss Gu." "You're welcome," Gu Yanran said as she handed her the long knife. "Come, cut the cake." As Gu Yanran spoke, she gestured to the hall. Behind the screen in the hall, a symphony of "Happy Birthday to You" suddenly sounded. She had invited the entire National Symphony Orchestra to accompany her. Everyone began to sing along happily. "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you." Tan Guirin picked up the knife and turned to look at her father, Prime Minister Tan. At that moment, someone joked, "How about Prime Minister Tan, Miss Tan, and Miss Gu cut the cake together?" Yes. Cut it together. Cut it together." Someone quickly joined in. Gu Yanran looked at Prime Minister Tan. "Mr. Prime Minister, let's cut it together." Prime Minister Tan took her hand and walked to Tan Guirin's side. Then the two of them held the long handle of the cake knife with Tan Guirin's left hand and right hand respectively. Just like that, the three of them were happy and harmonious like a family as they cut the 5-layer cake to the second layer. Kai Songyin had just walked into the hall when she saw such a scene. She was instantly enraged. He had worked so hard in the detention center only to be forgotten by the people. Her childhood sweetheart's husband was holding another woman's hand and cutting a birthday cake with her beloved daughter. Did they still remember her, the real mistress? She was so angry that her entire body shook. With a dark expression, she walked through the crowd and stood in front of the 3 people who were cutting the cake. Tan Guirin looked up in shock to see that it was actually Kai Songyin. She was so happy that she cried. She threw down the cake knife and rushed over. "Mommy, you're back." Prime Minister Tan instinctively let go of Gu Yanran's hand and also walked quickly to Kai Songyin's side. He said excitedly, "Madam, you're back." Kai Songyin had been in the detention center for half a month, so her previously round and smooth face had completely slimmed down. Once an elderly person slimmed down, they appeared even older than their actual age. There were 2 deep wrinkles on her face, and the crow's feet under her eyes were also very clear. She wore a wrinkled purple silk jacket and matching wool pants, so she really looked like a cleaner at the Prime Minister's official residence. Gu Yanran walked over with a face full of smiles. She wore a simple and fitted Versace evening gown, so when she stood in front of Kai Songyin, She looked even more inferior. She said to Kai Songyin, "Mrs. Tan, you came back just in time. We were just about to cut the cake. Why are you here?" Kai Songyin asked suspiciously. The situation just now had made her very uncomfortable. However, in front of so many guests she couldn't make a scene too ugly. She had to give Tan Dongbang face, and today was her precious daughter's birthday. She didn't want her daughter to be unhappy. Before Gu Yanran could speak, Tang Guiran quickly said, "Mommy, don't be angry. Miss Gu is Daddy's personal assistant. She was the one who organized my birthday party. Look, aren't there many guests today?" "Personal assistant?" Kai Songyin suppressed her anger and looked at Tan Dongbang. "Isn't this about work? Why do we need Miss Gu's help with our family affairs?" "It's just taking care of the internal affairs of the Prime Minister's official residence and taking care of little darling. You also know that I'm very busy with work. When you weren't there, Yanran, Miss Gu helped us a lot." Prime Minister Tan quickly explained in a low voice. At the same time he gave Kai Songyin a look to tell her not to ask any more questions. But how could Gu Nianji not take advantage of this opportunity? She walked over, clasped her hands together and said with a smile, "So that's how it is. No wonder my sister said she wanted to take care of Miss Tan and didn't have time to take care of me. That's great. Now that Mrs. Tan is back, you don't have to be Prime Minister Tan's personal assistant anymore, right?" Gu Yanran was choked by Gu Nianji's words. She was about to respond when she realized something was wrong. She said she still wanted to be a personal assistant, so how could Kai Songyin just let it go? But if she said she wasn't going to do it, wouldn't all her money go down the drain? Gu Yanran smiled and pointed at Gu Nianji affectionately. "You only know how to be mischievous. It's serious business for me to be the Prime Minister's personal assistant. How can I just say no?" "Oh? But Mrs. Tan is already back. What else do you need to do, sister?" "The internal affairs of the Prime Minister's official residence, the Prime Minister's food, clothing, accommodation and travel arrangements as well as Miss Tan's daily life, will all be taken care of by Mrs. Tan, the proper mistress of the house." "What else can you do, sister?" Gu Nianji raised her eyebrows and smiled gently. Kai Songyin nodded from the side and said, "I've troubled Miss Gu these days. I'll be in this house in the future." "You?" She hesitated and didn't know what to say. Gu Yanran was a bit surprised. She didn't expect Gu Nianji to start sowing discord as soon as Kai Songyin returned. She walked to Gu Nianji's side and poked her shoulder. "Nianji, don't mess around. I'm doing serious business." As she spoke, she quickly glanced at Prime Minister Tan. "Yes, Mrs. Tan will take care of the internal affairs of the Prime Minister's household and Miss Tan in the future. Sister, what else can you do as a personal assistant?" Gu Nianji spread her hands and looked aggrieved. "I just don't want you to work too hard. You're the eldest daughter of the wealthy Gu family in Barbados, but you have to wait on people here. Don't you think that's degrading? How can being a personal assistant be a job to wait on people? You're Yanran's younger sister. How can you talk like that?" Prime Minister Tan saw that Gu Yanran's face had turned pale and couldn't stand listening anymore. He spoke up for her. "Also, although my wife is back and doesn't need her to take care of the internal affairs of the Prime Minister's official residence and my daughter, there are still many things in the Prime Minister's official residence that require her to organize." The corners of Kai Songyin's eyes twitched. Tan Dongbang's tone when speaking for Gu Yanran was so intimate. However, Gu Nianji wasn't frightened. She smiled and nodded at Prime Minister Tan. "So, Prime Minister Tan, other than letting my sister take care of the internal affairs, you also need her to help you take care of work matters?" The work schedule of the Prime Minister's official residence and the Prime Minister's itinerary were indeed official matters. Prime Minister Tan nodded and praised her vigorously. "Yanran has done very well. With her around, the work efficiency of the Prime Minister's official residence has doubled." "Ah, so that's how it is. Prime Minister Tan, how can you knowingly break the law?" Gu Nianji made a sincere expression. "Hurry up and fire my sister. I really can't bear to see you get impeached before you've even secured your position." The word, impeachment, was taboo for Tan Dongbang right now. He laughed coldly. "I never knew that hiring a personal assistant would actually result in impeachment. There are so many prime ministers in our country, and each one has their own personal assistant. If you want to impeach them, you have to find trouble with these people first. I don't know what's going on with the former prime minister's personal assistants. But I do know that you're using Gu Yanran as your personal assistant to handle the official affairs of the Prime Minister's official residence. That's already the highest level of leaking secrets." Gu Nianji raised her chin, and her expression became serious. Gu Yanran is a Barbadian citizen. May I ask, when have you ever seen the highest leader of a country use a foreigner to handle official affairs? This was the first update. Today it was still the fourth update. The monthly votes were still double, and there were also recommendation votes. Dear friends, you forgot to vote for them. At 1 p.m. the monthly votes were 2,500 plus updates. At 7 p.m. the third update. At 11 p.m. the monthly votes were 3,000 plus updates. P.S. Thank you to Bagel16 for tipping 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Congratulations to Bagel16 for becoming the 17th chief of the Major General. Moi. Chapter 773. That's right, how could the head of a country use a foreigner as an assistant? The people attending Tangairan's birthday party were all high-ranking officials of the empire. They were either wealthy or respectable, and they all had very sensitive political thoughts. Although their expressions didn't change much after hearing Gu Nianji's words, they all began to mutter to themselves. Gu Yanran had been busy at the Prime Minister's official residence recently, and she had been in the limelight for a while. Also, her words and actions were very typical of the Wuxia Empire, so no one really thought about this. However, Gu Yanran's heart sank, and her face instantly turned green and red. She became very ugly. She really didn't know that the Wuxia Empire's high-ranking officials had this rule. When Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin asked her for money and promised benefits, they never said that foreigners couldn't work at the Prime Minister's official residence. If she had known about this rule earlier, she definitely wouldn't have given so much money to help Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin make up for their losses. Gu Yanran clenched her fists so tightly that the veins on the back of her hands bulged. She clenched her teeth tightly, and her usual gentle and charming demeanor was about to collapse. Gu Nianji held onto Prime Minister Tan's gaze and shook her head regretfully. If that's the case, I wonder if the Secret Service or the Special Operations Forces are investigating you? They were treating this as an espionage case. Tan Dongbang's heart tightened, and he immediately saw a tall and handsome man stand next to Gu Nianji. He nodded and said, "Yes, this lady is right. The Prime Minister's official residence can't hire foreigners to work. This matter must be thoroughly investigated by the Secret Service." Gu Nianji heard Yin Shixiang's voice, and her heart instantly bloomed with joy. This was the endorsement of a professional. Wouldn't Prime Minister Tan be afraid? Gu Nianji looked at the ashen-faced Gu Yanran and deliberately said, "Sister, are you surprised? Are you excited? You specifically sent me an invitation yesterday. Did you specifically want me to expose Prime Minister Tan's illegal behavior?" Nonsense. Gu Yanran finally couldn't stand everyone's stares and quietly scolded Gu Nianji. "What kind of place is this to allow you to be so presumptuous?" "How was I presumptuous? I said I was speaking the truth," Gu Nianji said seriously. Gu Nianji said seriously, "I told you not to get involved in this mess. Your IQ is simply not enough." To be honest, Gu Nianji looked down on Gu Yanran. Even if they had a lot of wealth in their hands, they didn't know how to rely on themselves to protect their wealth. Instead, they went around trying to curry favor with others. In the beginning, she had schemed against Hu Xiaoheng and wanted to rely on him to protect her family fortune, which was as rich as a nation's. After she failed, she curried favor with Prime Minister Tan. This kind of woman with no backbone to begin with, even a mountain of gold and silver wouldn't be able to make her stand up. Judging from Gu Yanran's way of doing things, no matter how generous and noble she pretended to be in front of others, she only had two paths to take in life. One was to kneel down and the other was to lie down. From this perspective, Gu Nianji truly felt that Gu Yanran's upbringing was problematic. If she had grown up in a family like the Gu family, even if she was an adopted daughter or even a servant, Gu Nianji felt that she wouldn't have developed this kind of way of doing things. Yijichu also said that she was indeed a daughter of the Gu family, just like Gu Yanran. Then there was only one possibility. Gu Yanran had only come to the Gu family later on, or more likely after a certain age. Her way of doing things and her worldview had already been formed. Living in the Gu family wasn't enough to completely change her. That was the only way to explain her behavior and the incongruity of her status as the wealthiest daughter of the Gu family. At that moment, Gu Nianji suddenly really wanted to know how Gu Yanran grew up and how she came to be in the Gu family. This completely different style from the legendary Gu family, how did it come about? However, Gu Yanran was so angry at Gu Nianji's belittling gaze that her intelligence was about to explode. This kind of gaze again. She thought she would never see this kind of gaze again in her life. Haha, my intelligence isn't enough? Didn't you still lose to me? Gu Yanran suddenly took a step forward and moved close to Gu Nianji's ear. She spoke in a voice that only the two of them could hear. What? Gu Nianji frowned. Get this straight. Some things can't be said carelessly. Gu Yanran immediately shut her mouth, a cold smile appearing on her face. Gu Nianji remembered everything and planned to slowly settle this score with Gu Yanran. At that moment, she calmly looked at the sweating Prime Minister Tan again and said slowly, Prime Minister Tan, are you going to be investigated by the Secret Service? Or are you going to be impeached by the Senate? Which would be easier? Tan Dongbang's gaze swept through the crowd and saw that a few deputy directors of the Secret Service had already begun to take out their phones to make calls with grim expressions. He took out a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from his forehead and had no choice but to tell the truth. Actually, you're thinking too much. Gu Yanran's expression froze. Tan Dongbang didn't dare to look at Gu Yanran's expression and continued, Actually, Miss Gu Yanran is only helping out here out of friendship. She's not an official employee of the office of the Prime Minister and hasn't come into contact with any classified information. She's just like a guest helping out at my home for a few days. To put it simply, Gu Yanran was only a temporary employee at the office of the Prime Minister. Gu Nianji never imagined that someone like Tan Dongbang would actually play this game. Was he lying to Gu Yanran? Sister, you've contributed money and effort, but you didn't even get an official position. Gu Nianji clicked her tongue. When you went to school to give me an invitation, you took the office of the Prime Minister's car and brought along bodyguards from the office of the Prime Minister. You said you were a temporary employee, but what kind of temporary employee would receive such treatment? You're even more impressive than an official employee. Gu Yanran's expression was now completely dejected. She never imagined that she didn't even have an official position. Then all her money had really gone down the drain. Gu Yanran couldn't help but glare angrily at Tan Dongbang, but she discovered that he didn't even dare to look her in the eye. She couldn't help feeling even more miserable. Gu Nianji smiled as she looked at Gu Yanran, then at Tan Dongbang as well as the dumbfounded Tan Guiran between the two of them. She extended a finger and waved it in front of Tan Dongbang. Prime Minister, although you said that my sister wasn't an official employee, the truth is that she still participated in the official work of the office of the Prime Minister. Therefore, this has already become a fait accompli. I'm afraid that you can't just throw out a temporary employee to divert the attention. This time, it was Tan Dongbang's turn to be dejected. When he and Kai Songyin had first discussed how to instigate Gu Yanran to contribute money to help them make up for the embezzlement of campaign funds, they had wanted to play around the edges. That way, even if someone exposed that they couldn't hire foreigners, they could still argue that Gu Yanran wasn't an official employee and hadn't participated in real official work. They never imagined that after being provoked by Kai Songyin's return today, he would actually personally say that Gu Yanran had participated in official work. This wasn't shooting themselves in the foot. Gu Nianji looked coldly at Tan Dongbang's regretful expression and thought to herself, it's too late to regret it now. She didn't even need to think with her knees to know that if Gu Yanran hadn't bled, would Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin have given her so many benefits? In other words, with Gu Yanran's stinginess, if Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin hadn't promised her a huge benefit that she couldn't refuse, would she have been so generous and only spent money to be a rich guy? So Prime Minister Tan and Mrs. Tan shouldn't be so smug and don't thank me. I really wasn't here to help you. Gu Nianji wasn't intentionally targeting anyone. She just felt that Tan Dongbang, Kai Songyin and Gu Yanran were all trash. Today she would first skin Gu Yanran as the Prime Minister's personal assistant, and then skin Prime Minister Tan as a temporary employee who didn't really matter. Finally she would make a move on Kai Songyin. Gu Nianji's goal was very simple. She wanted this iron triangle that was bound by benefits to fall apart and destroy all possibilities of Gu Yanran finding a backer in the Wuxia Empire. After all, she wanted to find the real Gu Xiangguan, so she had to control Gu Yanran. She couldn't give Gu Yanran the opportunity to create more obstacles. Gu Nianji glanced sideways and saw that Kai Songyin's expression was a bit complicated. She looked like she wanted to be happy but was also a bit worried about Tan Dongbang. She still had feelings for Tan Dongbang as husband and wife. Gu Nianji coughed lightly and patted Kai Songyin's shoulder. Mrs. Tan, why did you only come back today? I really didn't think that your case would end up like this. It's a pity that you're so capable, but you won't be able to raise funds for Prime Minister Tan's campaign in the future. If I had come to help you with this case, you would have already countersued the Procuratorate for harming your reputation and demanded compensation from the state. Kai Songyin's eyes widened. What did you say? I haven't been convicted or broken the law. Why can't I raise funds anymore? The corners of Tan Dongbang's lips trembled violently. He interrupted Gu Nianji and frowned unhappily. Miss Gu, today is my daughter's birthday party. It's not a place for you to solicit clients. Please conduct yourself with dignity. Gu Nianji giggled. Of course, Prime Minister Tan has his reasons for not wanting to hire the best lawyer for your wife. Okay, I won't talk about it anymore. Oh my, your representative lawyer, Miss Jean, is about to throw knives at you. Jean Wani was indeed standing to the side. She had originally wanted to watch the drama unfold, but in the end she heard Gu Nianji boast shamelessly about being able to help Kai Songyin fight for state compensation. Her heart couldn't help but tighten. Worried that Gu Nianji would spout nonsense, she quickly walked over and said, Gu Nianji, don't boast shamelessly. We've already done our best with this case. Don't think that you can boast shamelessly just because you have lawyer He's support. I'm boasting shamelessly? Gu Nianji's slender finger pointed at herself. She said with a half-smile, Lawyer Jean, are you serious? If I speak my mind, wouldn't you, your client, Prime Minister Tan, and Madame Gu Yanran slap yourselves 3 times? This was the second installment of the monthly ticket, 2,500 plus updates. Today it was still the 4th installment. The monthly ticket was still double and there were also recommendation votes. Dear friends, you forgot to vote for them. The 3rd installment at 7 p.m. At 11 p.m. The monthly ticket was 3,000 plus updates. P.S. This is the Nyang 515 Fan Festival. Dear friends, if you're willing you can click in and search for Records of Cambrian in the Gods Discuss Dao section. The fan title Cambrian Alliance will appear. Moi. Chapter 774. Jean Wani felt guilty and couldn't help but quickly glance at Prime Minister Tan. However, Prime Minister Tan only looked nervously at Kai Songyin, who was slowly raising her eyebrows. He quickly said, She's talking nonsense. She's just a student. What does she know about lawsuits? Prime Minister Tan, what you're saying doesn't make sense. Ma Qiqi saw that Gu Nianji had finally argued with Jean Wani and was inexplicably happy. She also stood up for her. You're saying that our Nianji is just a student? Did you know that the lawyer you hired, Lawyer Jean, lost to our Nianji a year ago? Not to mention that our Nianji traveled all the way to Germany to fight a lawsuit for an innocent student from our Wuxia Empire. She overturned the entire council, government and police department in the Roslao region. You're saying she doesn't know how to fight a lawsuit? Haha, if she doesn't know how to fight a lawsuit, then this lawyer Jean probably doesn't even know how to write the word lawsuit. Ma Qiqi's words were too merciless. Yin Shixiang snickered and pulled Ma Qiqi to stand beside him. He quietly scolded her. What are you saying? Just stand aside and watch the show. Jean Wani's expression changed. Not only was Ma Qiqi's words hurtful, but Yin Shixiang's blatant intimacy made her feel indescribably uncomfortable. With Ma Qiqi and Yin Shixiang's support, Gu Nianji felt even more confident. She took the initiative to attract Jean Wani's attention. Lawyer Jean, say something? Do you want to make this bet? It's quite embarrassing to slap yourself, but I won't pursue it if you voluntarily give up. Pursue what? Kai Songyin had been watching from the side for a long time. She hadn't thought of this at first, but now that she saw Tan Dongbang, Jean Wani, and Gu Yanran's uncomfortable expressions, her heart sank. What had happened that she didn't know about? The scenes from the courtroom replayed in her mind, and Kai Songyin's eyes gradually clouded over. Gu Nianji, are you serious? Seeing that Tan Dongbang and Jean Wani wouldn't let Gu Nianji speak, Kai Songyin reached out to stop them. She raised her chin at Gu Nianji, indicating for her to continue. Gu Nianji smiled and sighed. Using her hand to smooth her hair, she said dryly, Mrs. Tan, I'm a lawyer. I have to pay by the minute to speak to a lawyer. Also, you need to sign a confidentiality agreement so that no one with ulterior motives can steal my method. These words made Jean Wani feel a little guilty. She really didn't want to make this bet with Gu Nianji, but she also wanted to hear what Gu Nianji had to say. At this moment, when Gu Nianji pointed it out, she almost jumped back. Her expression was a little flustered as she stammered, There's a fee for ordinary legal advice? Gu Nianji, you're too evil. My heart is evil? Gu Nianji smiled as she walked towards Jean Wani. The idea I came up with was worth millions of dollars in compensation from the state. You wanted to listen to it without spending a single cent, and you even wanted to use my method to file a lawsuit, then accuse me of being evil? Was there such a logic in this world? Lawyer Jean, no wonder you were defeated by me a year ago. It turns out that you didn't put your energy into improving your professional skills. Instead, you used your evil intentions to engage in crooked ways. Jean Wani's heart shrank when she heard that, and she felt terrible. She seemed to have really gone against her original intention of becoming a lawyer, just as Gu Nianji had said. Jean Wani's gaze landed on Gu Yanran. When she had asked for Kai Songyin's defense, Jean Wani had listed the consequences of various defense statements, but Gu Yanran had chosen a defense that could protect Tan Dongbang but completely destroy Kai Songyin. Tan Dongbang had also been present at the time, but he hadn't said a word. It was as if he had silently agreed. Jean Wani really didn't expect Gu Nianji to be able to see through something fishy just by watching the live text broadcast of the court's televised debate. This young girl's future was truly limitless. Jean Wani couldn't help but look at Yin Shixiang again. However, she saw that he was beaming as he listened to the tall and bright woman beside him speak. He didn't notice her at all. So how did her life become like this? She didn't have a breakthrough in her career, and now even the man she had a crush on had been stolen by someone else. Just as Jean Wani was in a daze, Gu Nianji turned to look at Kai Songyin. Mrs. Tan, when your representative lawyer said that you had indeed misappropriated campaign funds, that sentence was already a life sentence for you regardless of whether you repaid it within 3 months. In people's hearts, you will forever be the person who misappropriated campaign funds. In the future, as long as you appear at Prime Minister Tan's campaign fundraising events, people will avoid you and refuse to donate to Prime Minister Tan. Everyone in the hall heard Gu Nianji's words and smiled meaningfully. This young female lawyer truly had some skills. Compared to the typical lawyer who only followed the client's requests, it was immediately obvious who was superior. Not only was she defending your innocence, but she was also protecting the client's reputation. For politicians like them, reputation was more important than anything else. No matter how unbearable they were in private, as long as it wasn't exposed, they could still be good people. As long as it was exposed, it meant that their political life was already over. Kai Songyin's chapped lips began to tremble violently as she turned to look at Prime Minister Tan. However, Prime Minister Tan's gaze was evasive and didn't dare to meet her eyes. She looked at Gu Yanran again, but Gu Yanran looked straight at her and said, "Mrs. Tan, don't be fooled by my little sister's words. She has liked to brag since she was young and has made up countless lies to deceive people." Gu Nianji's expression changed. Had Gu Yanran completely fallen out with her? That was exactly what she wanted. To be honest, every time she saw Gu Yanran pretend to be a caring older sister, she really wanted to vomit. Gu Nianji stood in front of Gu Yanran with a cold and mocking expression. Her large and dark eyes stared deeply at Gu Yanran as she said coldly, "Gu Yanran, don't speak nonsense as soon as you open your mouth. Even though we are sisters, if you say that, I will still sue you for slander and make you wear your pants. Do you believe me?" Gu Yanran's eyes narrowed, and her entire body trembled. "Apologize. I want you to apologize immediately." Gu Nianji took another step forward. "Don't think that just because I don't remember what happened when I was young that you can slander and slander me. You already said that you don't remember what happened when you were young. How can you say that I'm slandering and slandering you?" Gu Yanran thought that she had found a loophole in Gu Nianji's words and immediately retorted. "You're talking to me about evidence? Fine." Gu Nianji raised a finger. "First you said that I lied when I was young. Where is the witness? Who can prove that I lied when I was young? I can prove it, okay?" Gu Yanran laughed coldly. "Just because you don't remember doesn't mean that I don't remember. Haha, Miss Gu Yanran, you are legally illiterate. As the defendant, your words cannot be used as evidence. Just like when you play soccer, you can't be a player and a referee at the same time. So if you want to prove that I said such things, you must produce witnesses and material evidence to prove that I said it. If you can't produce it, then you are slandering me." Gu Yanran opened her mouth but suddenly remembered that all the old servants of the Gu family had died in the attack in Barbados. She quickly shut her mouth. "You can't say it? Oh, I seem to remember that all the old servants of the Gu family in Barbados died in a kidnapping case. Miss Gu Yanran, am I right?" Gu Nianji's memory was very good. Now that she had determined that there was something wrong with Gu Yanran, she thought about everything that had happened in the past. It was the third night watch. Today it was still the fourth night watch. The monthly votes were still double and there were also recommendation votes. Dear friends, you forgot to vote for them. At 11 p.m., the monthly votes were 3,000 plus night watch. It looked like there wouldn't be a fourth night watch tomorrow, so the monthly votes wouldn't reach 4,000 so quickly. P.S. It's the Nyang 515 Fan Festival. If you want, you can click in and search for Records of Cambrian in the Discussion of the Gods section. The fan title Cambrian Alliance will appear. Moi. Chapter 775. Gu Yanran didn't expect Gu Nianji to immediately think of the old servants who had lost their lives in the Gu Manor in Barbados. Not only was she shocked, but a vicious glint flashed across her eyes. Once she was angry, her expression calmed down. She blinked and looked at Gu Nianji with a disdainful smile. Fine. You're right. I'll apologize, okay? She said it very perfunctorily. Then you admit to making up lies to tarnish my reputation? Gu Nianji asked again with a serious expression. Just apologizing is useless. I won't sue you if you slap yourself 3 times. Gu Yanran couldn't help clenching her fists and whispered, Don't go too far. Today is little darling's birthday. If you have a problem with me, we'll talk about it when we get home. Gu Yanran, you tarnished my reputation in public. You should be happy that I didn't sue you until you went bankrupt. How dare you bargain with me? Fine, it looks like you prefer a lawsuit over slapping yourself 3 times in public. Since that's the case, I'll keep you company. Gu Nianji didn't want to back down at all. Gu Yanran clenched her fists and looked at Gu Nianji in disbelief. I only said a few words and you want me to slap myself in public? Yeah. Gu Nianji nodded. This is for you to remember not to say anything without evidence. I'm teaching you to be a good girl and not say things without evidence. Come on, slap yourself. If you don't slap yourself, I'll do it myself. Gu Yanran was so scared that she took 2 steps back and pointed at Gu Nianji. Don't do anything stupid. If you say one more word, I'll immediately draft a complaint. Gu Nianji raised her phone and said sternly, I'm not joking. Everyone in the hall looked over, and Gu Yanran couldn't help looking at Tan Dongbang pleadingly. However, he turned his head to look at the window in the distance and refused to look at her. At that moment, Yi Xian finally parted the crowd and walked over. He extended his arm to separate Gu Nianji and scolded her coldly, I dare you to touch Yanran. When Gu Nianji saw Yi Xian's arm reach out, the sound of wind whistling could be heard. Her eyes turned and her body moved faster than her brain. Twisting her slender waist, she spun half a circle and dodged Yi Xian's arm. At the same time, her right hand swung out and slapped Gu Yanran's face hard. Gu Yanran screamed and covered her face. She glared at Gu Nianji. You hit me? I want to sue you too. Gu Nianji waved her hand and said coldly, I was defending myself. Gu Yanran, put a bit on your little wolf dog so it doesn't bite people everywhere. Gu Yanran originally wanted to argue with her, but when she heard the words little wolfhound, she felt guilty. She rubbed her face and glared at Gu Nianji without saying another word. However, Yi Xian was unhappy and asked coldly, Who are you calling a little wolf dog? Whoever answers is a little wolf dog. Gu Nianji was already used to saying things like that. Yi Xian was hopping mad, but Gu Yanran stopped him. Prime Minister Tan couldn't help glancing at them. Kai Songyin, who had been frowning on the side, suddenly spoke up. Gu Nianji, do you really have another way? Of course. Gu Nianji ignored Gu Yanran and Yi Xian. She spread her hands and glanced at Jean Wani. When Lawyer Jean was choosing the direction of your defense, she must have prepared several methods for the client to choose from. If I'm not wrong, Lawyer Jean should have had a better way to protect you, but Prime Minister Tan and Madame Gu Yanran chose the one that was most disadvantageous to you. Nonsense. You're slandering me. That's not true. Prime Minister Tan, Gu Yanran and Jean Wani all denied it at the same time. Gu Nianji couldn't help but smile. Wow, you guys are so united. I'm deducing it based on the common sense of a lawyer's defense. That's what all the mentors in the law firms teach. If Lawyer Jean really didn't have one, then you're seriously neglecting your job and not thinking about your client's interests at all. JD Law Office is the largest law firm in the imperial capital. How did you manage to survive here? Could it be that the rumors are true and you're a backdoor entrant? Of course, Jean Wani and the others had discussed several options, but they knew now that they couldn't admit to this. Kai Songyin looked suspiciously at the serious Gu Nianji and then at Tan Dongbang, Gu Yanran and Jean Wani, who looked like they were facing a great enemy. She didn't know who to believe. At that moment, Tan Dongbang tugged on Kai Songyin's sleeve and said softly, Ayin, go upstairs and rest. I'll take care of things here and I'll explain to you later. We've been married for so many years, so trust me. He then had Tan Guerin accompany Kai Songyin upstairs. Kai Songyin heard Tan Dongbang's words and looked at Gu Yanran doubtfully before saying to Tan Guerin, Little darling, stay here and keep everyone company. Mommy will go change. Tan Guerin saw that her mommy had finally returned and had many things she wanted to say to her, but she couldn't abandon a room full of guests at a time like this. Okay, mommy, come down quickly. Tan Guirin reluctantly watched Kai Songyin go upstairs. Kai Songyin didn't bring Tan Guirin up because she wanted her to help keep an eye on Tan Dongbang. With his daughter there, Tan Dongbang didn't dare to overstep his boundaries. Gu Yanran also sighed in relief. She covered her face with one hand and said, "Today is Miss Tan Guirin's 25th birthday. Thank you everyone for coming. Don't just stand there. There's a buffet over there so everyone can enjoy." Gu Nianji turned her head and smiled lightly. Did they think this was the end? What a shabby sight. Gu Nianji's gaze fell on Tan Guirin's head, who looked hesitant. The pink diamond was the most saturated and purest pink diamond she had ever seen. Under the illumination of the chandelier in the hall, it looked like she was wearing a pink rainbow on her head. It was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off it. Tan Guirin had just seen her father and Gu Yanran's expressions change at Gu Nianji's words. She felt bad for them, but Gu Nianji seemed to make sense, so she didn't know how to respond. As she hesitated, Gu Nianji pointed at the pink diamond crown on Tan Guirin's head and suddenly said, "Miss Tan, where did you buy this pink diamond crown? It's so beautiful. Can I see it?" This pink diamond crown? Tan Guirin instinctively touched the pink diamond crown on her head and glanced at Gu Yanran. "This is a birthday present from Sister Gu." "Really? Sister, you gave this pink diamond crown to Miss Tan?" Gu Nianji pretended to be shocked as she looked at Gu Yanran. A hint of red finally appeared on Gu Yanran's pale face. She looked at Gu Nianji and saw the shock on her face. She felt smug again and only wanted to make Gu Nianji feel bad, so she said slowly, "Yes, this was a birthday present from my father when I was young. I thought it suited little darling, so I gave it to her. Little darling is a real little princess. Only she deserves to wear this pink diamond crown." "Oh really? Then sister, you think you don't deserve to wear this pink diamond crown, so you gave it to someone else? TSK, since it's a birthday present from father, why do you think you don't deserve it?" Gu Nianji said meaningfully with a hint of mockery in her eyes. It was the fourth night shift. Today it was still the fourth night shift. The monthly votes were still double and there were also recommendation votes which they forgot to vote for. It looked like there wouldn't be a fourth night shift tomorrow, so the monthly votes wouldn't reach 4,000 so quickly. P.S. It's the 515 Fan Festival. If you're willing, you can click in and search for Records of Cambrian under The Gods Discuss Tao, and the fan title Cambrian Alliance will appear. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 776. This is mine. I can give it to whoever I want. What does it have to do with being worthy or not? Gu Yanran looked at Gu Nianji with amusement. She was extremely pleased. Just the envy and desire in Gu Nianji's eyes made Gu Yanran feel that the gift was worth it. When the people in the hall saw this, they whispered to each other. "This pink diamond crown looks quite expensive. Yeah, it's probably something with a history. I also have a few pieces of pink diamond jewelry, but the color can't compare to this at all." Everyone was knowledgeable, so it was no wonder Prime Minister Tan's family was on good terms with her for Gu Yanran to give such a generous gift. Gu Nianji chuckled and tilted her head to look at the pink diamond crown on Tan Guirin's head. "Really? Did father really give it to you? But I think this pink diamond crown looks like a high-grade imitation. Father would give you high-grade imitation jewelry?" High-grade imitation? When everyone in the hall heard this, their expressions changed again. Some people believed it almost immediately. After all, the Tans had a history of wearing high-grade imitation jewelry. In the case that Tan Guirin's mother, Kai Songyin, was involved in, one of the charges involved high-grade imitation jewelry with patent rights. Although Gu Yanran stepped in later and bought the imitation rights, a knockoff was a knockoff. In their circle, using knockoffs was considered tasteless behavior. Although the people in the hall didn't speak loudly, no one purposely lowered their voices. Therefore, some gossip inevitably reached Gu Yanran's ears. Furious, her expression darkened as she said to Gu Nianji, "Little sister, you just told me not to say things without evidence. Why is it your turn to speak without thinking now?" "By saying this, sister, are you admitting that you were speaking without thinking just now to slander me?" Gu Nianji smiled, her curvy lips forming a beautiful curve. Her lips glistened like pearls, and her entire body seemed to be immersed in the moonlight. "Also, I wasn't speaking without thinking. How can sister prove that this pink diamond crown is real and not a high-grade imitation?" Gu Yanran sneered and pouted. "Why do I need to prove it to you? Also, high-grade imitation. Do you know what this is? High-grade imitation? You don't know what you're talking about." "Of course I know what this is. Gu Nianji walked around Tang Gurin, her voice suddenly clear and loud so everyone in the hall could hear her clearly. The style of this pink diamond crown is exactly the same as the pink diamond crown worn by Tsar Catherine of Russia. The crown of the Russian Tsar. That's the crown. The people in the hall became excited. Some people even picked up their phones and started taking pictures of the pink diamond crown on Tang Guirin's head. I didn't expect you to know your stuff. Gu Yanran raised a brow. To tell you the truth, my father went to Christie's to buy this as a gift for my birthday. I still have the receipt from Christie's at home. High-quality imitation? Does our Gu family still use imitations? What's wrong with the receipt? Can't the receipt be forged? Gu Nianji raised her hand and twirled her fingers. She said nonchalantly, I've seen cases of forgery before. They can even create receipts from Neiman Marcus, the top department store in the United States, not to mention receipts. At the end of the day, you're just angry that I gave this crown to little darling. Gu Yanran looked at Gu Nianji's desperate expression and smiled confidently. Mimicking Gu Nianji, she extended a finger and wagged it. Little sister, I know you like this crown, but I don't think you deserve it, so I gave it to someone who deserves it. Really? Isn't it because you don't think you deserve it, so you don't dare to wear it and can only give it to someone else as a favor? Gu Nianji was unmoved. Folding her hands behind her back, she looked at Tang Guirin. Actually, there's a very simple way to verify whether or not it was sold at Christie's. That's to check the serial number. If this pink diamond crown was really sold at Christie's, it must have a serial number on it. Gu Yanran hesitated when she heard that. She had never seen a serial number on the pink diamond crown. Could this crown really be fake? That's impossible. Why would father buy a fake? Gu Nianji saw that Gu Yanran didn't speak, so she extended her hand to Tang Guirin. Miss Tan, can you let me take a look at your pink diamond crown? I want to verify if it's real. There are so many people here, so don't worry. There won't be any damage. Tang Guirin really liked the pink diamond crown, and she didn't believe that such a wealthy family like the Gus would buy a fake. Therefore, she generously took it off her head and handed it to Gu Nianji. Take a look. I think it's real. The purity and color of this main diamond are too good. It can't be a fake. When Gu Nianji accepted the pink diamond crown from Tang Guirin, she felt like her heart was about to stop. Holding her breath, she carefully held the pink diamond crown in her hands. In that moment, she seemed to be able to feel her father and mother's ardent smiles and their loving fists. It penetrated the fog of time and landed on her hands. It was warm and comforting. The hustle and bustle in the hall faded, and the pink diamond crown was the only thing left in the world. It magnified infinitely before her eyes. This was a gift from father. Gu Nianji's slender fingers rested on the pink diamond crown. It was so white that it was almost transparent. Are you stunned? Gu Yanran's lips twitched. You call something this good a fake? You've never seen the real thing, right? Gu Nianji snapped back to reality and quickly glanced at Gu Yanran. Then, without hesitation, she lifted the pink diamond crown to look at the inside. The inside of the crown was crystal clear and almost transparent. There was no engraving at all. She couldn't even see the serial number. Gu Nianji's heart sank. Could this pink diamond crown really be a fake? She clearly remembered the back-end records on Christie's website saying that the buyer requested a diamond engraving master. If she couldn't find the engraving, she wouldn't be able to take back the pink diamond crown. In that instant, Gu Nianji's mind raced as she searched for a way to crack it. The serial number from Christie's auction isn't on the auction item at all. It's on the receipt. Gu Yanran had gone through this thing countless times over the years, so of course she knew where the serial number was. Here it's this. She even took out her phone to show the receipt she had saved. When she gave it to Tang Guirin as a gift, she also printed a copy of the receipt and put it together as evidence. Ever since Kai Songyin received the fake jewelry, she had been very concerned about the source of the gift. When Gu Yanran gave this gift, Prime Minister Tan had specifically checked the purchase evidence and confirmed that there would be no legal issues before allowing Tang Guirin to accept it. She hadn't expected to be able to use it as evidence. Gu Yanran's depressed mood finally improved. Gu Nianji only had to glance at Gu Yanran's phone to memorize the 18-digit serial number. It was indeed the same number she had seen on the back-end records of Christie's auction website. That meant this pink diamond crown was the treasure that Gu Xiangwen had won at Christie's 18 years ago. But why couldn't she see the serial number or inscription? In her panic, Gu Nianji's heart suddenly skipped a beat. She remembered that Hua Xiaoheng had taught her some techniques to recognize invisible handwriting in his free time. Most of these methods were used in espionage and intelligence work, but he also mentioned that when auctioning unique treasures, they would engrave unique serial numbers on them. In order not to damage the appearance of these treasures, the auctions would use a kind of invisible engraving technique. Using this technique to mark the treasure's auction was normally invisible to the naked eye. It could only be seen with specific lighting and illumination at specific angles. Gu Nianji had an idea. She turned to look at Tan Guiren and said, "Miss Tan, can I borrow the projector?" "Projector? I don't know if there's one here," Tan Guiren said awkwardly as she looked at Gu Yanran. Gu Yanran had been like the housekeeper of the Prime Minister's official residence for the past 2 weeks. She knew everything that Tan Guiren didn't know. However, before Gu Yanran could say anything, Gu Nianji had already called the female staff member who had pushed the cake cart over. She asked, "Can I borrow the projector?" There was a projector in the Prime Minister's official residence. The last time Gu Nianji had been here, she had seen Prime Minister Dou's family play a short video of Dou Qingyan studying abroad. The female staff member looked at Tan Guiren. Tan Guiren sighed and said in a conciliatory manner, "If there is one, give it to Miss Gu." The female staff member nodded and took out her walkie-talkie to call the staff member waiting in the side hall to bring the projector over and install it. In a short while the projector was installed. A large white screen hung from one of the walls of the hall and was aimed at the projector. Gu Nianji adjusted the projector and turned on the lights. She then placed the pink crown in front of the projector and slowly adjusted the angle. On the sparkling white screen, a dazzling pink diamond crown appeared, spinning continuously. Gu Yanran frowned and said unhappily, "Little sister, what are you doing? Be careful not to damage the crown. I've already given it away. If you damage it, you'll have to pay for it." Gu Nianji ignored her and focused on adjusting the angle of the crown under the projector's light. Then when she turned to a certain position, some blurry words suddenly appeared on the inner wall of the pink diamond crown on the screen. Then the words turned from blurry to clear. Numbers and numbers gradually appeared, and then cursive letters began to appear. Gasps could be heard in the hall. Even Gu Yanran was dumbfounded. On the white screen, 18 numbers appeared on the inner wall of the pink diamond crown that had been magnified countless times. It was the pink diamond crown serial number. Then, following the number, a string of fluent cursive English words appeared. To Sirius. Bling. The records she had seen on the website were finally displayed in front of her eyes. Gu Nianji's eyes were red, and her crisp voice had a hint of fierceness. "Sister, everyone knows that my English name is Sirius, and your English name is Jasmine. This is recorded in passports and other identification documents. So what right do you have to say that this pink diamond crown was given to you by father? This was the first watch. Monthly votes and it was double. Please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes. My dear friends, I forgot to vote. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, $3,500 a month. Third watch at 7 p.m. P.S. Thank you to Momo Moshi for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Moi. Chapter 777. Also, didn't you say this was a birthday present from father? But look at the date of the auction on the receipt. That was my birthday. My first birthday. Why would father bid for this crown on my birthday and give it to you as a birthday present? Gu Yanran, you're a complete idiot. Do you think everyone else is as stupid as you? Gu Nianji finished speaking in one breath and panted slightly from excitement. She was only glad that when her father requested the engraving, he also requested the auction house to keep it a secret. Therefore, although Gu Yanran had received the receipt and proof of purchase from Christie's, she didn't know about the engraving at all. Otherwise, Gu Yanran wouldn't have dared to publicly give away the pink diamond crown. Gu Yanran was completely stunned by the image shown by the projector. She had coveted this pink diamond crown for many years. Finally, she could get her hands on it openly. She had played with it countless times at home and was confident that she had studied it thoroughly. However, she had never expected that there would be a hidden thorn lying in the dark. Father, oh father. You racked your brains just for Gu Nianji. Why have you never treated me so well? Gu Yanran had a pitiful smile on her face. Her entire body was cold and trembling, and her eyes were filled with unknown resentment. Her usual gentleness and charm was nowhere to be found. Yixian was also stunned by the words on the screen. He looked at Gu Yanran and then Gu Nianji and felt that something was wrong. He knew about this pink diamond crown. When he was in boarding school in the United States, he had secretly chatted with Uncle Gu's daughter anonymously. She often mentioned this item and said that it was a birthday present from her father when she was 1. She liked it very much. She liked this pink diamond crown so much, but she ended up giving it to someone else. Yi Xian didn't understand at first, but Gu Yanran told him that it was for the greater good. This was the first time he had seen the receipt and realized that it was dated 18 years ago. That definitely wasn't Gu Yanran's first birthday. Gu Yanran was the same age as Tang Guiran. She was also 25 this year and 3 years older than Yi Xian. So who was the anonymous Miss Gu who had chatted with him online all those years ago? Yi Xian suddenly felt a splitting headache. He hugged his head and took a step back, hiding in the shadows in the corner of the wall. Gu Nianji's low rebuke echoed in the hall, and the guests were all dumbstruck. They were shocked speechless by this dramatic turn of events. Prime Minister Tan also froze for a moment before politely extending his hand and saying, "What exactly is going on? Miss Gu Nianji, please return this pink diamond crown to me first. Do you want to settle the matter between you and your sister in private?" Shedding all pretense of cordiality in public was too unsightly. Gu Nianji chuckled and shook her head. "That won't do. This is a gift from my father. How can I give it to you? Not to mention the word return. Mr. Prime Minister, don't you feel embarrassed saying this?" Prime Minister Tan had spoken, so he didn't need to say anything else. Prime Minister Tan's chief secretary immediately chimed in. "Miss Gu Nianji, everyone saw it clearly just now. You used deceptive tactics to trick our miss into giving it to you. I don't care what argument you have with your sister, but this pink diamond crown was officially given to our miss as a birthday present by Miss Gu Yanran. You can't be so low that you want to take back a gift you gave away, right?" Gu Nianji raised a brow and smiled. "Huh. You want to discuss the ownership of an item with a lawyer? Fine, then I'll tell you. First of all, this was given to me by my father. I have the receipt and the inscription as proof. Gu Yanran has no right to dispose of anything that doesn't belong to her. In other words, she has no right to take something that belongs to me and give it away. Now that she's taking something that doesn't belong to her, that's called stealing. Giving it to you is called selling stolen goods. May I ask, is the dignified office of the Prime Minister really going to help a thief sell stolen goods?" Gu Nianji paused and hugged the pink diamond crown tightly. She then said, "As for the exchange of benefits between you, ask her for it. Don't ask me for my things. I have nothing to do with you. Mr. Prime Minister, can you be a little more shameless?" Prime Minister Tan's face turned green with anger at her words. His gentle face actually had a hint of malevolence. The Prime Minister's chief secretary immediately flushed red, but the Prime Minister didn't say anything, so he braced himself to continue asking. Using his hand to push the gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose, the chief secretary only said one thing over and over again. "This was given to our miss by Gu Yanran. You have no right to take it away." Gu Nianji finally couldn't help but roll her eyes. "If you keep acting like this, I'm going to court to sue the office of the Prime Minister for forcible theft." "Sir, are you going to have your Prime Minister go to court when your First Lady's lawsuit hasn't been settled yet?" When Tang Guiran heard this, she quickly said, forget it. Since this crown is Miss Gu Nianji's, just return it to her. I don't want it anymore." As she spoke, she snuggled up to Prime Minister Tan's side and hooked her arm. "Daddy, I know you're doing this for me, but I don't want you to get into trouble because of this." Prime Minister Tan's face darkened as he looked at Gu Nianji darkly. His voice was flat as he said, "Fine, I won't argue with you for my daughter's sake. I'm not interested in who this thing actually belongs to. It's just that you can be so merciless to your sister. I feel bitterly disappointed for your sister." When Gu Yanran heard Prime Minister Tan speak up for her publicly, color returned to her face. She looked up, and a flash of resentment flashed across her eyes. However, when she saw Gu Nianji, she had already recovered her usual gentleness and charm. She sighed softly and said with pity, "Nianji, sister forgives you. I know that you were kidnapped by perverts in Germany and put under house arrest for half a month. You suffered a lot. That's why you became so extreme." "What? She was kidnapped by perverts and put under house arrest? I don't believe it. These two sisters are obviously fighting. Also, Gu Yanran has already been proven to be lying. How can her words still be trusted?" Everyone whispered among themselves. Surprisingly, only a few people believed it and the majority of people didn't believe it. When Ma Chichi heard this, she was so angry that she wanted nothing more than to pounce on Gu Yanran and viciously scratch her to death. Yin Shixiang quickly pulled her back and whispered, "It's not good to overreact to this. See how Nianji deals with it." However, Yin Shixiang was actually also worried. He quietly pressed the button and followed Hua Xiaoheng's plan to throw out tonight's bombshell, in hopes of helping Gu Nianji get out of this predicament. However, Gu Nianji didn't care at all. She slowly walked over, her eyes never leaving Gu Yanran's side. She approached step by step and stood in front of her. She said sarcastically, "What's wrong? You heard the word kidnapped, and immediately came up with a dirty story in your head? Gu Yanran, how can you be so dirty? Aren't you supposed to be a noble, spotless rich woman? What kind of nonsense are you thinking in your head? It's not that I'm dirty, but everyone thinks that way." Gu Yanran's voice was very soft, but her eyes were full of resentment as she looked at Gu Nianji. "Everyone? Who's everyone?" Gu Nianji shrugged and didn't care about Gu Yanran's gaze at all. "Gu Yanran, you're so good at lying. I'm warning you, don't mess with me. If you mess with me again, I'll make sure you lose everything." Gu Yanran clutched her chest in pain, her face full of disbelief. Nianji, how good of a girl were you before? How did you become like this now?" Gu Nianji had had enough of Gu Yanran, but what angered her the most was Gu Yanran mentioning what happened in Germany. She immediately realized that Gu Yanran probably didn't just kick her when she was down. She was very likely involved in the whole thing. Otherwise, how would she know that her disappearance had something to do with a certain pervert? Gu Nianji thought about how Gu Yanran had not only taken over her family's assets and occupied her home, but had also schemed to kill her. The last bit of kindness Gu Nianji had for Gu Yanran disappeared. She stood in front of Gu Yanran and looked down at her. She said calmly, "If that's the case, let's make things clear in front of everyone. You've always said that you love me like your own sister, but all the rumors that tarnished my reputation came from you. I didn't hold it against you because of our sisterhood, but now you're used to lying. Do you think a lie will become the truth if it's repeated 1,000 times? Do you think I'll swallow my anger forever? Let me tell you, you've miscalculated. Aren't you just worried that I'll go back to the Gu family and split the assets? I really didn't want it, but now you're throwing dirt at me. If I don't fight for it, wouldn't I be giving you a reason to spread rumors and create trouble? I'm officially telling you, Gu Yanran, that I'll go to court on Monday and request to split the assets equally with you. If I say it'll be split equally, then it'll be split equally. One less deposit, one less property, one less patent, one less stock. None of that is called splitting equally. Also, splitting the assets equally will start from the year my parents got into the accident. You don't know how to count, so I'll give you a simple explanation. All the expenses, failed investments, and favors you've given me all these years, I'll take half of it. That's what you owe me. Gu Yanran, wash your neck and wait for me to skin you. Let's see how much you have left in the end. Will selling your body be enough to return my family's assets? This was the second night, and the monthly ticket was 3,500 Canadian dollars. The monthly ticket was even double. Please get monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Dear friends, I forgot to vote for them. 7 p.m. the third night. P.S. This is the Nyang 515 Fan Festival. If you're willing, you can click in and search for Records of Cambrian under The Gods Discuss Dao. The fan title Cambrian Alliance will appear. Moi. Chapter 778. Gu Nianji's voice was crisp, but when she said it word by word, it was powerful and shocking. The hall was silent for a moment, and everyone's eyes kept darting between Gu Nianji and Gu Yanran. Gu Yanran's heart was thumping so hard it was about to jump out of her throat. Hearing that Gu Nianji wanted to split the inheritance, all the blood in her body rushed to her head, and she almost couldn't control herself. She used up all her self-control, and the nails she had just done almost broke in her palms. Gu Yanran sighed, and her voice trembled as she said, "We want to split the inheritance? I'm afraid that's not possible. Father isn't dead yet, so how can we split the inheritance?" This meant that the Gu family's inheritance was still under Gu Xiangwen's name. Gu Nianji looked down at the pink diamond crown in her hand, and a trace of mockery appeared on her lips. Without looking up, she said, "You don't have to worry about that. You don't know the law at all, so you can't split it just because you say so." Gu Yanran resisted the looks of disdain and pretended to be calm. "I really don't know. Father is still alive, but you want to split the inheritance. What's the logic? Which country's law is this? Then I'll explain it to you again." Gu Nianji held up the pink diamond crown in her hand, her expression very calm. "Listen carefully. The person on the bed has been in a vegetative state for 7 years, and he has completely lost his ability to act. He is no longer a legal subject, so he can be treated as a legal invalid. Therefore we can split the inheritance equally. Even a missing person could be treated as dead after 7 years, so of course the person in a vegetative state on the bed could enjoy the same treatment. Gu Nianji only felt that it was a pity that she couldn't openly kick Gu Yanran out because Gu Yanran's identity document proved that she was indeed Gu Xiangwen's daughter. Whether the person in a vegetative state on the bed was Gu Xiangwen or not, it wouldn't affect her legal status. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Gu Nianji decided not to deny her identity as a daughter of the Gu family. Therefore, without a will, Gu Yanran could get half of the inheritance. But looking at Gu Yanran's actions and movements over the years, Gu Nianji had reasonable reason to guess that Gu Yanran had squandered most of her share. In the past, I was a minor and couldn't deal with the family's assets. But now that I'm an adult, I can take at least half of everything in the Gu family. Gu Nianji's eyes quickly swept across the hall and took in everyone's expressions. You want to fight with me for the right to manage the Gu family? Fine, we'll talk about it later. Today is Miss Tan's birthday. You shouldn't. Gu Yanran paused, her gentle gaze drifting to Prime Minister Tan. Prime Minister Tan's heart ached when he saw the situation and helped her out of the situation. With a serious expression he said, "This is your family's private matter. What's the point of making a fuss about it in our official residence of the Prime Minister? How did you get in? Who gave you the invitation?" Gu Nianji raised her eyebrows. She didn't want to say where she got the invitation, but Prime Minister Tan had been holding it in all night and finally couldn't hold it in anymore, right? Looking at the way he was looking at Gu Yanran, it would be strange if they weren't related. Gu Nianji secretly despised Gu Yanran for not being able to control herself. She had Yi Xian, the little wolf dog, yet she still had to provoke Prime Minister Tan, the old vegetable. Seriously, she didn't want to be her sister. Even if they were only sisters in a legal relationship, they didn't want to. Gu Nianji secretly pondered how to get out of the situation with Gu Yanran as she rebuked Prime Minister Tan. She composed herself and said seriously, "Prime Minister Tan, I wouldn't be as quick to burn the bridge after crossing it. How did the dispute between me and my sister become our family's private matter? Do you really think this has nothing to do with you and your wife? You're getting more and more ridiculous. What does this have to do with Prime Minister Tan and Mrs. Tan?" Gu Yanran retorted somewhat frantically. "Fine, we'll talk about it when we get back." "Why do we have to talk about it when we get back? What I want to talk about is related to Prime Minister Tan and Mrs. Tan." Gu Nianji turned to look at Tan Dongbang. She was tall and wore a pair of boots. Her black and bright eyes were shockingly bright. The crystal chandelier in the hall reflected in her large eyes like thousands of starlight falling into a pool of autumn water. The water rippled slightly and crushed the starlight to scatter into a sea of stars. It had a captivating look. Prime Minister Tan glanced at her and then looked away. He said unhappily, "If it's a private matter, we can talk about it later." "It's not a private matter. Gu Nianji might as well get straight to the point. What I want to talk about is the matter of Gu Yanran paying for your campaign funds to make up for the deficit." She paused and watched Prime Minister Tan's expression gradually turn from annoyance to seriousness. His eyes hidden behind the gold-rimmed glasses narrowed into a straight line. "What does this have to do with you? The court has already approved it." Prime Minister Tan didn't want to listen to Gu Nianji anymore. He turned around and led Tan Guirin to the spiral staircase. Gu Nianji looked at the Prime Minister's back and said word by word, "How can it not have anything to do with me? That was an illegal gift from Gu Yanran without my consent. I want to go to court and demand compensation for the illegal gift." Prime Minister Tan's body instantly froze. He knew how much money that was. If Gu Nianji really demanded compensation, he would have to use his own money to make up for the deficit. That wasn't a small amount of money. It was nearly $20 million in deficit, and it was all Gu Yanran's money. But Gu Yanran also owns half of the Gu family's assets. What's wrong with her gifting her share to Prime Minister Tan? Prime Minister Tan's chief secretary quickly cleared the air for his boss. "Haha, is that so? Then I'll see you in court. At that time, you'll all know why Gu Yanran's gift was an illegal gift." Gu Nianji dealt with it like it was nothing and slammed the hammer down. Gu Yanran's vision darkened and her body swayed. She quickly supported herself on the table to stand. She panted slightly and vaguely thought, "What should I do?" At that moment, Kai Songyin had just returned to her bedroom upstairs and had just come out of the bathroom. Although her days in the detention center weren't too messy, it still wasn't as comfortable as home. Wearing a bathrobe, she sat down in front of the vanity and casually pressed the remote control on the vanity. This was a remote control for indoor appliances. It could remotely control the air conditioner, television, phone, and stereo sound system. Kai Song-in loved listening to very soothing and light music every night before she went to sleep to relax her tense nerves. She turned on the remote control for the stereo, and Richard Goodman's Die Sir Alice piano music instantly filled the entire bedroom like moonlight. Kai Song-in picked up a comb and began combing her hair. Amidst the music that sounded like a spring, Kai Song-in completed her maintenance procedure. She stood up to take out a dress from the closet and put it on the bed. At that moment, she noticed that the position of the pillows wasn't quite right. The two pillows weren't neatly arranged. This was something that Kai Song-in, who had a slight obsessive-compulsive disorder, couldn't stand. Kai Song-in pulled over a pillow and patted it. Just as she was about to put it back in place, she saw something sticking out from under the pillow. It was a pair of black lace stocking panties. Kai Song-in was very sure that she didn't have such sexy panties. She pulled it over to take a look. It was a Victoria's Secret Angel brand. It wasn't particularly expensive, but it was especially sexy. She pulled it over to take a look. It was the smallest size P0. It wasn't her size at all. She wore clothes that were size 8 to 10. Haha, was someone purposely trying to drive a wedge between them? Kai Song-in didn't believe it at all. She pouted and threw the black lace stocking panties into the trash can. She took off her bathrobe and changed. At that moment she suddenly heard someone talking. She quickly covered her bathrobe and asked cautiously, "Who is it?" The person who was talking ignored her and continued, "Prime Minister Tan, are you sure you want this plan?" It was the voice of her lawyer, Jean Wani. Kai Song-in could tell that it wasn't someone speaking in her bedroom. It was a recording of a conversation being played from her stereo. She held her breath and continued to listen. Then she heard her husband, Tan Dongbang, say, "Yinran thinks this plan isn't bad. I've looked at it. Although it's conservative, it's a sure win, so I'll go with this." Lawyer Jean seemed to hesitate for a moment before saying, "All right then, since you insist. But I have to remind you that if you use this plan to defend yourself, your wife's reputation will be completely ruined." "Yeah, it's fine." Tan Dongbang's voice was a bit cold. Kai Song-in's heart instantly sank. She thought back to how Gu Nianji had said that lawyers had several plans for their clients to choose from in the lobby. Lawyer Jean, Tan Dongbang, and Gu Yanran had all denied it in unison. They were treating her like a fool. Kai Song-in shot up from her seat. Suddenly, the sound from the stereo changed again. What followed was a passionate conversation between a man and a woman in bed. There was also the sound of the large bed pounding and the sound of their bodies colliding. The sound came from the excellent sound system and echoed in Kai Song-in and Tan Dongbang's bedroom. Kai Song-in was all too familiar with the man and woman's voices. They were Tan Dongbang and Gu Yanran. This was the third watch. Monthly votes and double. Please give us monthly votes and recommendation votes. Dear friends, we forgot to vote for them. P.S. This is the Nyang 515 Fan Festival. If you're willing, you can click in and search for Records of Cambrian in the Legend of Cambrian section. The fan title Cambrian Alliance will appear. Chapter 779. Kai Song-in had always been proud of the sound quality of the top-notch stereo surround sound system imported from Germany. But today, for the first time, she hated how realistic the sound quality was. If this was an imitation, then the skill was too amazing. She was so familiar with Tan Dongbang's voice. He had said it by her ear for so many years, so she could barely hear the difference in the imitation. All those childhood sweethearts, all those years of being close to each other, suddenly couldn't withstand a single blow from the two of them talking in bed. Kai Song-in stood expressionlessly in the middle of the bedroom and slowly raised her trembling hands to cover her ears. "Ah!" she screamed. "It's fake. It's fake. It's not real." Kai Song-in wanted to use her screams to drown out the two of them's unbearable sounds, but she realized that no matter how loud she screamed, the two of them always found a gap between their private conversation and burrowed into her ears, her brain, and her heart. The unbearable torture made Kai Song-in finally burst into tears and sit on the floor with her head in her hands. The floor was covered with a high-quality hand-woven woolen carpet imported from the Middle East. She opened her eyes to look at the vine flower pattern on the carpet and let out a heart-wrenching cry. The bedroom's soundproofing was very good, so no one outside could hear her even if she screamed herself hoarse. Thus, she took advantage of this opportunity to vent her frustrations unscrupulously. After crying, Kai Song-in slowly stood up and grabbed the remote control on the vanity with a livid expression. At that moment, the sound in the stereo had already changed. It was like a montage in a movie that had changed locations. She heard someone say anxiously, Where's the Prime Minister? I need him to sign this document right now. Wait, the Prime Minister is in a meeting. The person speaking had a serious expression. It was the voice of Tan Dongbang's chief secretary. His tone and intonation all proved that he was well aware of Tan Dongbang and Gu Yanran's affair. Kai Songyin completely froze. The chief secretary's words clearly proved that these two shameless adulterers were actually having an affair in the office of the Prime Minister's official residence. Kai Songyin couldn't take it anymore. She raised her arm and threw the remote control at the wall-mounted stereo on the wall. There was a loud bang and the top-of-the-line stereo system made a few gurgling sounds that changed its pitch. Then it died down. Kai Songyin panted and stood in the bedroom for a long time before putting on her clothes expressionlessly. She looked in the mirror and put on coral lipstick. This color could brighten up her complexion. Her entire face was currently dark and gloomy. If she didn't brighten it up, she wouldn't be able to see anyone. She took out her phone and turned on the control system of the stereo. She logged in from her phone, found the file that was placed together with the music, and downloaded it to her phone. Surprisingly, the file was actually a video and audio file. If he played it on his phone, not only could he hear the sound but he could also see the video. When she saw the two of them entangled on the bed, the last trace of hope in her heart disappeared. That voice wasn't imitated, nor was it someone trying to frame him. It was her beloved husband. Decades of childhood sweetheart just like that collapsed in front of her. She knew that she was finished. Her life was hopeless. Years of love were no match for a man's political ambition. She would never be able to help Tan Dongbang in the future. Tan Dongbang was such a powerful person, so she would only become his burden in the future. No wonder he couldn't wait to get together with Gu Yanran. He was the richest man in Barbados and had a fortune that could rival a country's. He was also young and beautiful. Kai Songyin couldn't compare to him in any way. She was almost 50 years old. At her age, losing a marriage and a man meant losing everything. However, if these two people thought that Kai Songyin would obediently leave the stage, then they were gravely mistaken. Tan Dongbang wanted to get rid of her? Gu Yanran wanted to use her as a stepping stone? Dream on. Kai Songyin opened the professional video editing software on her phone expressionlessly and began editing the video. She was in the media industry, so video editing was a piece of cake for her. The first thing she did was to blur the scene in Tan Dongbang's figure and face. Only the rough appearance of the bed could be seen. Then she also changed his voice until it couldn't be recognized as his voice. As for Gu Yanran, Kai Songyin used methods to enhance the clarity and contrast. She even kept the high resolution so that every detail of her body could be clearly seen on the phone screen. Even the obvious mole on her right chest could be clearly seen. Finally, Kai Songyin cut out the most exciting part of the video and saved it into two files. One was a 2-minute video and the other was a 30-second close-up of Gu Yanran. She uploaded the original video to her cloud account and encrypted it. Then she deleted the backup on her phone. She used the video player on her phone to watch the 2-minute video several times. After confirming that the content didn't expose any information about Tan Dongbang, she finally smiled. Upstairs, Kai Songyin took a few deep breaths and walked out with a serious expression. She walked down the spiral staircase. Halfway down, she saw a projector being used downstairs. On the white screen as tall as the wall was the pink diamond crown that Gu Yanran had given to Tan Guoren. Then she heard Gu Nianji accuse Gu Yanran of stealing her things and giving them away as a favor. She also said that she would get it back one by one. Because of her daughter, Tan Guoren, Kai Songyin had always disliked Gu Nianji. However, hearing Gu Nianji angrily berate Gu Yanran today was strangely satisfying. This was exactly what Taizu once said. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Kai Songyin laughed coldly and took out her phone to connect to the projector's control program. Then she quietly uploaded the 2-minute video she had just modified to the projector's player. Because all the electrical appliances in the Prime Minister's official residence were managed intelligently, other than the bedroom, the phone could be used to replace the remote control as long as a central control app was installed. Kai Songyin had used this app to upload the 2-minute video. Then Kai Songyin opened her secondary Weibo account and uploaded the 30-second close-up of Gu Yanran. The sound of Gu Nianji angrily berating Gu Yanran and threatening to skin her alive and sell her body was still echoing in everyone's minds. Gu Yanran's tearful appearance made many people sympathize with her. They felt that Gu Nianji was being too aggressive and overboard. At that moment, the projector that had dimmed earlier suddenly emitted a beam of light. It projected onto the screen in front and automatically started working. Everyone's eyes involuntarily followed the beam of light and looked at the projector screen. In the blink of an eye, two people rolling around on the bed suddenly appeared on the white screen. The man's figure and face had been blurred, so no one could tell who it was at all. However, even if they could see it clearly, they couldn't be bothered to look because the woman's figure and face on the screen attracted everyone's full attention. Everyone only needed one glance to immediately recognize the woman rolling around the man like a snake. Was Gu Yanran. Yin Shixiang's eyes widened as he quickly looked around. Then he covered Machichi's eyes and said, "Don't look." Machichi was watching happily, so how could she not look? She stepped on it and Yin Shixiang jumped away in pain. Only then could Machichi widen her eyes and watch the female lead's short video up close. The hall echoed with Gu Yanran's soft, coquettish sounds in bed. The people who had just thought Gu Yanji was being aggressive immediately changed their views. Because Gu Yanran was a hypocrite. If it weren't for this 18+ video, almost no one would have seen Gu Yanran's other side. Gu Yanran was already embarrassed from her argument with Gu Yanji. She never imagined that there would be an even more embarrassing thing waiting for her. Staring at her naked self on the large screen, Gu Yanran's vision darkened with the high contrast and extremely clear color resolution. She looked at Prime Minister Tan without hesitation, but he looked like he had seen a ghost. He stumbled and ran upstairs like he was escaping. Tan Guiran looked back at the screen and was also stunned. She covered her mouth as she stood on the spiral staircase, not knowing what to do. Only Kai Songyin walked down the spiral staircase step by step to the trembling Gu Yanran. Covering her mouth, she laughed. "Miss Gu, what are you doing? Today is little darling's birthday party. How could you be so careless as to release your private video and share it with everyone?" Gu Yanran couldn't take it anymore and turned to point at Gu Yanji. "You're too shameless. How could you release something like this just to deal with me? You're invading my privacy." In her anger, she even forgot to mention that it was someone else's Photoshop. Of course, it would be extremely difficult for her to say that someone had photoshopped such a high-resolution video. Of course, this had nothing to do with Gu Yanji. She rolled her eyes and immediately knew who was behind it. Spreading her hands, Gu Yanji said calmly, "Gu Yanran, don't get the wrong person. Why would I have something as dirty as yours? Take a good look at who the male lead is. This video was most likely done by the male lead's wife or girlfriend." Gu Yanran immediately understood that it wasn't Gu Yanji, but Kai Songyin. Looking at the video that was still playing on repeat, she was both embarrassed and angry. Rushing over, she frantically tried to turn off the projector, but for some reason she couldn't turn it off. On the screen she was still rolling over and over again. After the initial shock, the people in the hall found it more and more hilarious. The quick-witted people took out their phones to record it. Even if they didn't use their phones to record it, anyone who saw it would find it hard to forget the video that was playing on repeat, because it was so well done. Japan's special resources couldn't compare at all. There was also a moving soundtrack and emotional dialogue. Although the male lead was blurred out, it made the imagination even more relaxed. Amidst the chaos, He Jichu and Hua Xiaoheng walked in. Seeing the video being played in the hall, Hua Xiaoheng folded his hands unhappily and said with a stern face, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a birthday party at the Prime Minister's official residence, not a third-rate party. Please conduct yourselves with dignity." This was the first update. The double monthly votes would end in one day, so please vote if you have a monthly vote. At 1 p.m., 4,000 monthly updates. At 7 p.m., the third update. P.S. Thank you to the Guanghan Palace Master and Xuanchuang B for the 10,000 Chidian coins each yesterday. Mwah. Chapter 780. Hua Xiaoheng's voice was low and gentle, but it also had a captivating magnetism and a pressure that couldn't be ignored. He was already unusually handsome, so when he said it with a straight face, it only made people admire him and want to kneel before him. Gu Yanji's large and dark eyes looked over. Her gaze was as cold as obsidian soaked in ice water. Hua Xiaoheng's gaze swept over everyone in the hall before finally meeting Gu Yanji's eyes. They looked at each other across the hall, but it felt like they were separated by 1,000 mountains and rivers. Tan Guiran's heart instantly fluttered when she saw Hua Xiaoheng come and speak up for her. She secretly looked at Hua Xiaoheng and then at Gu Yanji, but she didn't see any change in their expressions. They were like two normal people who knew each other. Tan Guiran thought their emotions were too normal. They didn't look like a pair of lovers who were excited and happy to see each other. If he was my boyfriend, I would have pounced on him happily as soon as I saw him. I wouldn't have stood far away like nothing had happened and didn't even bat an eyelid, Tan Guiran thought silently, her gaze glued to Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Yanran also looked like she had seen her savior and quickly said to Hua Xiaoheng, Hua Xiao. They're too much. They're invading my privacy. Gu Nianji felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't help but touch her arm and move to the side. She wanted to break off her sisterhood with Gu Yanran again. She really couldn't handle how thick-skinned this person was. Hua Xiaoheng parted the crowd and walked towards Gu Nianji. This direction was also where Gu Yanran was. When she saw Hua Xiaoheng walking towards her, she was ecstatic. She was like a drowning person who finally had a piece of driftwood tossed to them from the shore. She would desperately grab onto the driftwood to float to the surface. When Gu Nianji saw Hua Xiaoheng walking over, she instinctively looked to the side. Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi were standing not far behind her. She quickly turned around and stood behind Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi. Don't turn around. Just stand there. Gu Nianji lowered her voice and threatened. Yin Shixiang wanted to laugh, but just as the corners of his mouth curled up, he saw Hua Xiaoheng striding over expressionlessly. He quickly lowered the corners of his mouth, and his expression became serious. Hua Xiaoheng walked quickly and calmly walked past Gu Yanran to Yin Shixiang. He didn't even look at Gu Yanran. He didn't even glance at her from the corner of his eyes. Gu Yanran bit her lip and said reluctantly, Hua Xiao, are you really not going to do anything? This whole thing was all Nianji's doing. She knew it wasn't Gu Nianji, but at this time, Hua Xiaoheng would only intervene and help her solve the problem if Gu Nianji was involved. Otherwise, she would drag Gu Nianji down with her. Although they had broken up, Gu Yanran knew that men would always take care of their ex-girlfriends. She really had no other choice. Seeing that Prime Minister Tan was unreliable, she could only turn to Hua Xiaoheng to help her clean up the mess. As expected, Hua Xiaoheng turned around and looked at Gu Yanran coldly. What did you say? His voice wasn't loud and his tone wasn't serious, but the aura in it was so oppressive that people couldn't raise their heads. Gu Yanran stared blankly at Hua Xiaoheng's face, which was so handsome that it made people want to worship him. She said sadly, Hua Xiao, Nianji committed such an outrageous and illegal act. Are you not going to uphold justice? Did she have to throw the blame on Gu Nianji? Kai Songyin didn't say anything at this time. She smiled widely as she watched Gu Yanran target Gu Nianji. She couldn't wait for these two sisters to tear each other apart as much as possible so they could solve her and her daughter's problem together. Hua Xiaoheng's face was full of impatience as he said coldly, Gu Yanran, you need evidence to speak. Don't make up nonsense in front of me. Hua Xiao, I didn't. Listen carefully. I never hit women. I always shoot them to death, Hua Xiaoheng said coldly. He turned around and ignored her. He only glanced at Yin Shixiang. Yin Shixiang understood and quickly took out his phone to call the police. Yes, the Prime Minister's official residence. Someone is playing a restricted video here. Please come and investigate. Turn it off. Turn it off now. The staff in the lobby finally snapped out of their daze and rushed to the projector to turn off the video in a flurry. The heavy breathing and moaning, as well as the swaying of the bed, immediately disappeared from the lobby. Everyone was actually not used to it. Gu Yanran sighed in relief, but she didn't have the face to stay there any longer. Prime Minister Tan was unreliable and had already run away. As for Hua Xiaoheng, his gaze was too frightening. Especially when he said, I never hit women. I always shoot them to death. It scared the soul out of Gu Yanran. She didn't dare to go near him again. She turned around to search for Yi Xian in the crowd and said in a trembling voice, Xian? Xian? Where are you? Yi Xian stood in the corner. His face was ashen, and his heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. The beliefs he had held on to all these years were like a skyscraper about to collapse. They were tottering in front of him. His gaze wandered between Gu Yanran and Gu Nianji before landing more and more on Gu Nianji's side. Gu Nianji stood behind Yin Shixiang with her head lowered. She fiddled with the little tassels on her sleeves and looked like an obedient girl. It was as if the beautiful warrior girl who had been angry at Prime Minister Tan and Gu Yanran was just an illusion. At that moment she suddenly felt a heavy gaze on her. Gu Nianji looked up and saw Yi Xian standing in the corner of the wall. He wasn't as calm and collected as he had been at the beginning, nor was he as confrontational as before. He just looked at her like that, his brown eyes filled with sorrow and regret that couldn't be dispelled. Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. It looked like Gu Yanran's little wolf dog had fallen in love with her. Look at his grief-stricken face. But why is he staring at me? Could it be that he also thinks I secretly recorded that video? He really thinks too highly of me. Gu Nianji's gaze drifted over to Hua Xiaoheng. As soon as Gu Yanran's video was played, Gu Nianji understood that it had to be Hua Xiaoheng's doing. Also, Yin Shixiang had previously said that Hua Xiao had prepared a big gift for them. She couldn't be so stupid as to not understand the double entendre. Did she really think it was a big gift? When Hua Xiaoheng came in earlier, he sternly reprimanded everyone for having a level 3 party. It was really quite deceptive. The people who didn't know the truth would really think that Hua Xiaoheng was there to uphold justice. Didn't Gu Yanran get tricked just now? Although Gu Nianji didn't know how the video ended up in Kai Songyin's hands, anyone with a brain could see who was the mastermind for it to be played at this critical juncture, especially when Kai Songyin had just come downstairs. However, Gu Yanran was even worse than a brainless person because she was still stupid and bold. She provoked people she shouldn't provoke and people she shouldn't associate with. Gu Nianji had already argued with her to this extent, but she still dared to get involved. But how could Hua Xiaoheng be so easily provoked? Gu Nianji cursed silently as she glared back at Yi Xian, unwilling to be outdone. Yi Xian felt uncomfortable and turned his head to look away. He walked out of the hall in a daze. The Gu Yanran in the video just now was the Gu Yanran that Yi Xian was familiar with. He also knew that Gu Yanran didn't see him as a boyfriend, so he knew that she had spent the night with someone else. Although he felt uncomfortable, he didn't think too much about it. He always thought that once he successfully wooed Gu Yanran and made her agree to be his girlfriend, she would stop having affairs with other men. However, after watching the video today, he finally realized that he couldn't accept such behavior at all. She slept with him while maintaining such a relationship with another man. What was even more unacceptable was that he seemed to have mistaken her for someone else. 7 years ago, when the Gu family was in trouble and he rushed back, Gu Yanran hugged him and cried about how hard it was to support the Gu family alone. She also said many things that only he and the Miss Gu who had chatted anonymously would know. He thought she was the person who had chatted anonymously with him and the person who had saved him. Only now did he realize that he had been too naive. However, he had truly loved her. Even if he knew now that he had gotten the wrong person, his feelings couldn't be taken back so easily. However, he also despised himself for being so blind to use his feelings on such a person. He walked to the entrance of the Prime Minister's official residence. The street lamp at the entrance of the Prime Minister's official residence emitted a pale light that elongated Yi Xian's shadow. Gu Yanran realized that Yi Xian had already left and quickly followed him out. Everyone in the hall had different expressions as they watched the best actress of the night quietly leave. Kai Songyin looked at her back with disdain and thought to herself, "There's still a wave of hot topics. You can slowly enjoy them." Hua Xiaoheng looked around and strolled behind Yin Shixiang to stand next to Gu Nianji. He didn't look at her and put both hands in his trouser pockets. Looking up straight, he said calmly, "The new house is finished. Are you going back with me tonight, or should I go back with you?" This was the second update and the monthly vote was 4,000 plus updates. The double monthly vote was going to end in one day, so please vote if you have a monthly vote. At 7 p.m. the third update. P.S. This is the Nyang 515 Fan Festival. If you want, you can click in and search for Records of Cambrian in the Discussion of the Gods section. The fan title Cambrian Alliance will appear. Moi. Chapter 781. Gu Nianji was speechless. Was there a difference? Although Gu Nianji really wanted to see how her newly bought second-hand house looked like, she was still a bit unhappy with Hua Xiaoheng's tone. Also, after experiencing so much drama today, even someone as energetic and healthy as her was a bit tired. At that moment, she just wanted to take her beloved pink diamond crown to a place with no one around and admire it in detail. She looked up and was about to retort when she saw Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi standing in front of them leaning forward. Tsk, even their ears were perked up. Even if they were eavesdropping, they didn't have to be so obvious, okay? Gu Nianji touched her earlobe and looked straight ahead as well. She said calmly, "I'm too tired today. I want to go back to the dorm." If she went back to the dorm, Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't go back with her, right? Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips as his gaze fell on the pink diamond crown in her arms. "This thing is very valuable. Are you sure you want to take it back to school like this?" Gu Nianji was speechless. She looked down at the pink diamond crown in her hands and the faint glances from the people in the hall. She hugged the pink diamond crown even tighter. "Come back to the official residence with me and lock this thing in your safe." Hua Xiaoheng's voice deepened. It sounded like he was admonishing her, but it also sounded like he was patiently guiding her. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and shook her head. "No." She then handed the pink diamond crown to Hua Xiaoheng. "Just take it back and put it in the safe for me." "You trust me that much?" Hua Xiaoheng looked at her for a while before taking the pink diamond crown from her. Actually, you can put it in your new house. I installed a built-in safe for you there. It has an alarm system and can directly contact the police station. Gu Nianji struggled internally and wanted to continue saying no, but looking at the pink diamond crown in Hua Xiaoheng's hands, she really couldn't bear the possibility of losing the pink diamond crown again. Hua Xiaoheng knew her too well. She couldn't refuse his conditions. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and could only whisper, "Okay." Then she said, "Just walk me to the door." Hua Xiaoheng smiled and non-committally held the pink diamond crown in his hand. "When are you leaving?" Gu Nianji looked at Ma Qiqi. "Go out first. I still have something to say to Qiqi." Hua Xiaoheng nodded and took the car keys from Yin Shixiang. "I called Little Fan to pick you and Qiqi up." They had come in the same car, but now Hua Xiaoheng had to drive himself to her newly bought second-hand house. Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi had to find another car. It's fine. Yin Shixiang secretly gave Hua Xiaoheng a thumbs up. The chief knows when to yield and when to stand tall. He's a real man. Gu Nianji rolled her eyes at him but didn't say anything. She didn't need to ask to know which side Yin Shixiang was on, so she didn't blame him. Ma Qiqi pulled Gu Nianji aside and said, "Nianji, are you coming back tonight?" Gu Nianji replied calmly, "Of course I'm back. I'm just going to check out the house and drop that thing off." Ma Qiqi knew Gu Nianji was talking about the pink diamond crown. This thing was too valuable. Remember to hide it well. Why don't you go to the bank tomorrow and open a safety deposit box? Ma Qiqi suggested to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji nodded. "I will. I heard there's a safety deposit box in my house." "That's great." Ma Qiqi relaxed and patted Gu Nianji's shoulder. "Be careful." Hua Xiao's combat ability was too strong. Ma Qiqi couldn't help but want to pray for Gu Nianji. In the hall of the Prime Minister's official residence, the music that had slowed down started playing again. The men and women in evening gowns acted like nothing had happened. They chatted in the hall and many people were still talking about what had just happened. Gu Yanran, the richest woman in Barbados, had fallen just like that. Their gazes at Gu Nianji were filled with new scrutiny and approval. A capable person wouldn't be buried anywhere. Seeing a few people walk over to Gu Nianji, Hua Xiaoheng left first and said, "I'll wait for you in the parking lot." After he left, the people came over to greet Gu Nianji and wanted to exchange business cards with her. Gu Nianji spread her hands with a smile. "I'm still a graduate student, so I don't have a business card. Miss Gu is already so amazing with a master's degree from B University's Faculty of Law. You'll definitely have a bright future." These kinds of compliments weren't worth much, but they showed a person's attitude. If they didn't take you seriously, they wouldn't even bother to talk to you, much less mention complimenting you. Gu Nianji understood this, so she tried to be as serious as possible with these people. After staying there for nearly 20 minutes, Gu Nianji finally left with Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi. Tan Guirin saw that she didn't leave with Hua Xiaoheng, so she really wanted to believe that Gu Nianji had broken up with Hua Xiaoheng. However, she also saw that Gu Nianji had given the pink diamond crown to Hua Xiaoheng. Would such a valuable item be given to someone they didn't have a good relationship with? With that thought, Tan Guirin became uncertain again. She looked at Gu Nianji with a complicated expression and asked, "Why did Miss Gu let Hua Xiao take the pink diamond crown?" Gu Nianji thought to herself, "What does it have to do with you?" But that would be too rude and disrespectful to the Prime Minister's daughter. Also, she probably wouldn't be able to hold her position as Prime Minister for many days. Therefore, Gu Nianji couldn't help but be a bit more lenient with Tan Guirin. She said seriously, "Yes, it's like this. I was worried that the crown wasn't the real thing, so I asked Mr. Hua to help me examine it." Tan Guirin was shocked. Mr. Hua knows how to appraise jewelry and cultural relics. Yes, Mr. Hua is an all-rounder. He knows everything. Gu Nianji smiled slightly and turned to leave. Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi had a hard time suppressing their laughter. They only started laughing when they left the main entrance of the Prime Minister's official residence. Gu Nianji didn't laugh with them. She saw He Zhichu at the main entrance of the Prime Minister's official residence. She remembered that Hua Xiaoheng and He Zhichu had just come in together, but for some reason He Zhichu had seen the pink diamond crown in Gu Nianji's hand and instantly felt it was particularly glaring, so he didn't come in. Instead, he turned to walk down the corridor outside. He stood there silently smoking, his tall and elegant figure exceptionally lonely under the streetlights. Gu Nianji thought about it and walked over to whisper, "Professor He?" He Zhichu turned to look at her. Her face was as beautiful and delicate as a sprout in spring, and there was something more in her large eyes than before. They were no longer a clear stream that one could see all the way to the bottom at a glance. Instead, they had gradually become a pool of autumn water, mysterious and moving. Nianji, you did well today. He Jichu began to praise her. I saw you argue with Gu Yanran. Gu Nianji's face flushed instantly. You saw it? Didn't you go out? She remembered that He Jichu had just been called away by the staff to say that there was a problem with his car. He Jichu looked up at the moonlight on the horizon and said dryly. Big Xiong used his phone to livestream the whole thing, so I saw it from the side. Gu Nianji was a bit embarrassed and could only ask again. Is your car okay? He Jichu held a cigarette in his hand and sighed. It suddenly caught fire and now it's all gone. Gu Nianji was speechless. Then how are you going back? Gu Nianji was worried. She had come in He Jichu's car, and now that he didn't have a car, was she going to leave him alone? He Jichu threw away the cigarette in his hand and said, How are you going back? I'm going back in Huoxiao's car. Okay, let's go together, He Jichu said dryly. His shimmering, sultry eyes flashed twice, and he followed Gu Nianji to Huoxiao's car. It was the third watch. The double monthly votes were going to end in one day, so if you have monthly votes, please vote. P.S. It's the Nyang 515 Fan Festival. If you're willing, you can click in and search for Records of Cambrian, under The Great Gods Discuss Tao. The fan title Cambrian Alliance will appear. I heard that you can get a title for just 5 treasure balls now. Mwah. Chapter 782. In the spacious parking lot behind the office of the Prime Minister, Huo Xiaoheng stood alone in front of his silver-gray Bentley SUV, waiting for Gu Nianji. He crossed his arms and leaned against the door of the front passenger seat. He leaned forward slightly and hung his head. One of his long legs was stretched out on the ground, and the other was half bent backward against the wheel. Under the clear, glassy moonlight, he looked like a painting standing there. At that moment, Gu Nianji forgave herself for being young and arrogant. This man was so beautiful, how could she not flirt with him? Huo Xiaoheng looked up to see Gu Nianji, and his expression froze. She wasn't the only one who came. Jichu came with her. His deep eyes narrowed slightly, but he had already returned to normal when He Jichu and Gu Nianji walked up to him. You're here. Huo Xiaoheng straightened and said to Gu Nianji nonchalantly, It's only a short distance, and you still need Professor He to drive you? Gu Nianji was a bit embarrassed. He Jichu wasn't here to drive her, but before she could speak, He Jichu said, My car had an accident today. Huo Xiao also saw it. It's late now, and it's not convenient to call a taxi to the office of the Prime Minister. Huo Xiao, please take us back. It's on the way. Huo Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji and knew from her expression that she hadn't told He Jichu where she was going. Gu Nianji suddenly had an idea and quickly said, Yes, it's on the way. Huo Xiao, please take us back to school together. That way she wouldn't have to go to her newly bought second-hand house alone with Huo Xiaoheng. What a great wit. Gu Nianji wanted to give herself a thumbs up again. Huo Xiaoheng looked at her coolly and opened the car door. Get in. Gu Nianji looked at He Jichu and asked hesitantly, How about Professor He sit in front? He Jichu shook his head, his cold voice exceptionally lonely in the late autumn night of the imperial capital. No, I'm not used to sitting in a row with strangers. Gu Nianji was speechless. Huo Xiaoheng didn't even look at He Jichu. He knocked on the car door and said unhappily to Gu Nianji, Hurry up, your school closes at 11 o'clock. At that time, it would be more troublesome to get in and out as they would need to stop and show their identification. Gu Nianji was overjoyed. She thought she could really go back to school and not have to face Huo Xiaoheng alone. She immediately slipped into the car and sat in the passenger seat. He Jichu sat in the back. The corners of Huo Xiaoheng's lips curled up imperceptibly. He walked around to the driver's seat, closed the door, fastened his seatbelt, and stepped on the accelerator to start the car. The silver-gray Bentley quickly drove out of the parking lot of the Prime Minister's official residence. At first no one in the car spoke. Huo Xiaoheng had always been a man of few words. He Jichu wasn't a talkative person. Although Gu Nianji was talkative, she was a little tired today and didn't want to talk. Therefore, she propped her head up with her hand and stared out the window at the night view. The street lights near the Prime Minister's residence were very bright, and the security was very cautious and complete. She drove out of Willow Lane 32 and turned onto the highway. Gu Nianji saw 2 familiar people pass by on the side of the road. It was Yi Xian and Gu Yanran. Their cars were parked on the side of the road and they seemed to be quarreling. Huo Xiaoheng drove too fast, so Gu Nianji couldn't hear what they were arguing about even when she rolled down the window. Soon their car drove past and got on the highway. "Close the window," Hua Xiaoheng said dryly as he looked straight ahead. Gu Nianji pressed the button on the door and the window quickly rolled up. The noise and clamor on the highway were immediately isolated, and the car was eerily quiet. Even the breathing of the three people could be heard clearly. Gu Nianji felt very uncomfortable and began to find something to say. "Professor He, what happened to your car?" Gu Nianji turned to look at He Jichu, who was sitting in the back seat. Hua Xiaoheng said, "Professor He's car suddenly spontaneously combusted and was burned to ashes from the inside out." He turned to look at Gu Nianji. "It's almost the same as the car you were in when you were 12 years old. It was completely burned." Gu Nianji frowned. "But I didn't hear an explosion. If the situation was exactly the same as when she was 12 years old, there would have been an earth-shattering explosion and a mushroom cloud rising into the air," Hua Xiaoheng grunted. "Yes, that's the only difference. Professor He's car didn't explode, but it was still completely burned just like your car. That's why it's even more suspicious." Gu Nianji's car had been completely burned to ashes because of the high temperature caused by the explosion, which was still scientifically supported. However, He Jichu's car had suddenly spontaneously combusted to ashes in a matter of seconds without even exploding. To a certain extent, it was more difficult and therefore more terrifying. As soon as Hua Xiaoheng received the news, he went to the scene to investigate. When he discovered that the situation was more serious than he had expected, he immediately mobilized the Special Operations Force's technical personnel to seal off the scene. He planned to send everything at the scene, including the soil and ashes, to the Special Operations Force's laboratory. From what they knew about the phenomenon of spontaneous combustion, there was nothing with a high ignition point that could burn the materials used to make advanced cars to ashes in a matter of seconds. Moreover, it had been burned very cleanly. There was no stench emitted by burning plastic or chemical materials. Similarly, there was no industrial pollution. What did this mean? This meant that the car had reached an extremely high temperature in an instant, then quickly and fully combusted everything into carbon dioxide, so there was no discomfort. It was only the phenomenon of a car's spontaneous combustion, but Hua Xiaoheng's analysis already covered the most sophisticated knowledge and theories in the fields of environmental protection, chemical engineering, materials, high-energy physics, and weaponry. Gu Nianji listened in awe and couldn't help asking He Jichu, "Professor He, what's so special about your car?" He Jichu crossed his arms and tilted his head to look out of the car. When he heard Gu Nianji's question, he turned around and shrugged. "No." He paused, then said lazily, "Even if there was, I wouldn't know. I'm just a law professor." Hua Xiaoheng chuckled but didn't expose He Jichu. With He Jichu's abilities, he was only a law professor. He Jichu had underestimated him. If Hua Xiaoheng's guess was correct, He Jichu's car had been modified. That was why it could accelerate at high speed and produce a sonic boom. Knowing that He Jichu had discovered it, He Jichu had resolutely cut off his arm to survive and destroyed the entire car. So what was the point of suspecting him? He wouldn't give him any evidence at all. But it didn't matter. Hua Xiaoheng was the most patient when it came to waiting. The three of them didn't speak again and drove back to B University in silence. It was only 10:55, so it wasn't time to close yet. Hua Xiaoheng drove He Jichu directly to the professor's building. He Jichu frowned and said, "You should take Nianji back to her dorm first." Hua Xiaoheng didn't even turn around. With one hand on the steering wheel, he said calmly, "We have to respect our teachers." He Jichu was speechless. He unbuckled his seatbelt with a dark expression and opened the door. He then kicked it shut. Hua Xiaoheng rolled down the window and waved at him from inside. Then he stepped on the gas and sped away like an arrow. Gu Nianji was just about to unbuckle her seatbelt and get out of the car, but she didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to quickly drive away. Gu Nianji looked at the road ahead. After a while, she said with surprise, "This isn't the direction to my dorm." "Yeah, this is the direction to our new house." Gu Nianji was speechless. "You promised to take me back to my dorm." Gu Nianji was angry. "How can you go back on your word?" "When did I promise?" Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her and put an arm around her clenched fist. He gripped it tightly with a smile in his eyes. "I said I would take Professor He back to school first. He was too cunning." Gu Nianji once again felt that Hua Xiaoheng was different from before. The more she thought about it, the more wrong she felt. She turned her head away and said unhappily, "You never lied to me before. You never ignored me before." Hua Xiaoheng patted her hand. His deep and dark eyes lingered on her pouting lips for a moment. His voice instantly deepened. "Be a good girl and sit tight. We'll be there soon." Gu Nianji's second-hand house wasn't far from school. After Hua Xiaoheng drove out of B University, he arrived at the underground parking lot of Hipingli Building A in 10 minutes. Gu Nianji saw her flashy bright red Ferrari already parked in a separate compartment in the parking lot. Get out. Hua Xiaoheng parked the car and walked over to Gu Nianji to open the door for her. Gu Nianji sat in the car without moving. She said coldly, I want to go back to school. Get out. Hua Xiaoheng said again. You seem to be a little impatient. Gu Nianji thought to herself, it's good that he's impatient. It's best if he gets annoyed with me. Then we'll drift apart in the future. She still sat in the car without moving. Hua Xiaoheng saw that she still didn't move and nodded. You like being in the car? He walked back to the driver's side and opened the door to get in. He started the car and reversed it out of the parking lot. Then he drove to a blind spot of the surveillance cameras and stopped. Hua Xiaoheng pressed the button again. The entire car's tint gradually darkened. Most of the lights in the parking lot were blocked. Only blurry shadows could be seen. Gu Nianji originally thought that Hua Xiaoheng had given in and was driving her back to school. She didn't expect him to stop here. She was still thinking too much. How could Hua Xiaoheng give in? Gu Nianji looked around and became vigilant. What are you doing? Hua Xiaoheng's face was tense. He unbuckled his seat belt and leaned over to her. He nimbly held her shoulder with one hand and tucked the other into the black hair at the back of her head. He lowered his head and kissed her lips without hesitation. He didn't know how long it had been since he last kissed her. As soon as he touched her soft lips, Hua Xiaoheng felt his brain explode. His rationality and restraint all collapsed. At first he only wanted to do it lightly and scare her. But she tasted sweeter than he remembered. His lips pressed against hers and couldn't be separated anymore. He was so forceful that it was no longer a kiss but a sucking. It made her lips burn and hurt. This was the first update. Today was the last day of the double monthly votes. Dear friends, please vote if you have monthly votes. 4,500 additional updates at 1 o'clock p.m. Third update at 7 o'clock p.m. P.S. Thank you to Momo Moshi for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Also, regarding the number of balls needed to claim the Hanwu Alliance fan title, it was said that the balls would be reset to 0 every day. Then the more people claimed it, the more balls needed. Dear friends who claimed it early in the morning only needed 5 balls. At night it might need 25 or 50. Moi. Chapter 783. Hua Xiaoheng was extremely strong and he was excited. His arms wrapped around Gu Nianji so tightly that she could barely breathe. Hot air rose from his chest, bringing with it an intoxicating scent. He enveloped Gu Nianji in his own scent. Her breath was filled with him. He wanted to fill her from the inside out, from top to bottom, from body to heart. Gu Nianji felt a little dizzy. She subconsciously wanted to resist, but the delicious scent made her unable to move. Her entire body was almost frozen. Hua Xiaoheng's lips were practically sucking on hers. He kissed her lips over and over again tirelessly. Gu Nianji only slowly came back to her senses when Hua Xiaoheng kissed her lips so hard that she started to feel pain. She struggled in Hua Xiaoheng's arms and raised her arms from under Hua Xiaoheng's body. She held onto his shoulders and wanted to push him away. However, Hua Xiaoheng used one hand to clamp both of her hands. He lifted them up and pressed them against the back of the seat. His strong chest took advantage of the situation to press her down. The softness of her chest almost drowned him. Hua Xiaoheng couldn't help but press even tighter. The two of them were so close that he could even feel her vigorous heartbeat from his chest. Therefore, his kisses became even more unrestrained. Like a wine lover who encountered an irresistible fine wine, he indulged himself in it. Gu Nianji quietly opened her eyes and saw his handsome face inches away. He was so close that she could even count his long and thick eyelashes. His tall nose pressed against hers, and his hot breath intertwined with hers. Every time he moved around her lips, the tip of his straight nose would gently touch her cheek. It was as light as a butterfly's wings, making her feel cherished. However, his strong restraint made her resist it from the bottom of her heart. Gu Nianji opened her lips slightly when he was very engrossed in sucking. She wanted to bite him like last time. However, Hua Xiaoheng seemed to be on guard. Her lips parted slightly, and Hua Xiaoheng's other hand suddenly pinched her delicate jaw, preventing her from moving. She could only open her mouth helplessly, allowing the tip of his powerful tongue to penetrate deep into her lips. Hua Xiaoheng lowered his eyes and pressed his lips against hers over and over again. He tasted the sweetness on her lips and swept his tongue between her lips. The tip of his tongue probed into her mouth and suppressed her delicate tongue. She kept trying to escape, but there was no way to retreat. Lips and tongues tangled, helping each other in times of need. But the feeling of his jaw being shackled and his hands being restrained was not pleasant. Gu Nianji's lips were numb, and Hua Xiaoheng's strong body pressed heavily against hers. Her heart twitched and she suddenly felt sad. Tears filled her eyes, but she tried her best to keep them open, not wanting the tears to fall. He couldn't cry, he definitely couldn't cry. She could not cry in front of him again. Because she was holding back her tears, her body became even more stiff. Even Hua Xiaoheng could feel it. Gradually waking up from the uncontrollable emotions, Hua Xiaoheng slowly stopped kissing her, but he still maintained his original position. Chest to chest, lips to lips, they quietly leaned against each other. He opened his eyes and saw clearly that there were tears in her eyes. Gu Nianji's eyes were red, and the tip of her small nose was also red, but she tried her best to control the tears and not let them fall. Those tear-filled eyes made his heart ache. Why was she so stubborn? When she first wanted to be with him, she was also this stubborn. She was so stubborn that he couldn't ignore her. Unknowingly, she had taken root in his heart. But now that she wanted to leave him, she was also this stubborn. Even if it meant completely removing her from his heart, she wouldn't hesitate. Hua Xiaoheng put down the hand clamping down on her and released her jaw. He cupped her cheek with one hand and gently slid his thumb over her eyes. Gu Nianji tried to hold it in and finally forced the tears back down. Biting her lip, she turned her face away and said in a muffled voice, "Can Mr. Hua be merciful and let go of me now?" Hua Xiaoheng stroked her head, his voice a little hoarse. "Nianji, you're crushing me. I can't breathe." Gu Nianji still turned her head away and refused to look at him. She felt wronged. "You only know how to bully me?" Hua Xiaoheng sighed and called her again. "Nianji?" Gu Nianji glared at him and pushed the car door. She found it was locked tightly and wouldn't open no matter how hard she tried. "Nianji, I'm pursuing you. This kind of thing is very normal." Hua Xiaoheng finally moved away from her and sat up straight in the driver's seat. "If I don't have this kind of sexual interest in you, then there's something wrong. For a man to love a woman, there must at least be sexual attraction." This was an important mark that distinguished love between a man and a woman from other feelings. Gu Nianji wasn't an ignorant girl. She was well-read and had a photographic memory. Her understanding of feelings wasn't shallow, so she didn't have any psychological barriers when it came to sleeping with the man she loved. It was because it was love, and when the conditions were right, success would follow. But now it was different. Gu Nianji couldn't help but look at him and clench her fists. "Then did you ask me? I didn't want it, so you forced me. Would you agree if I asked you?" "Of course not." "Then why did I ask you?" Hua Xiaoheng's answer was short and forceful, and his logic was self-contained. Gu Nianji was stunned for a moment and only reacted after a while. "Robber logic. You only found out today?" Hua Xiaoheng leaned against the steering wheel and looked at her sideways. His calm expression was determined and domineering. "Negotiating while shooting people's heads, that's my principle." Gu Nianji groaned and closed her eyes to rub her forehead. That's right, how could she forget? When she was with Hua Xiaoheng in the Special Operations Forces, she had seen with her own eyes the negotiation skills he and his team used for overseas rescues. That was never negotiating with kidnappers and never compromising. The so-called negotiation was a technique to buy time to shoot the kidnappers' heads. "You're treating me like a prisoner. This is too much." Gu Nianji scolded him in a low voice. She was very angry. "You don't even want to carry out what you personally promised. You're already unilaterally tearing up the agreement. Why should I talk about morality and principles with you?" Hua Xiaoheng turned off the car and took out the key. He said calmly, "If you want me to treat you as one of my own and not a prisoner, then abide by the agreement between us. I promise to spoil you to death." Gu Nianji, how could he spoil someone like that? Besides, did she want to be spoiled? Gu Nianji's eyes were about to burst into flames. She gritted her teeth and said, "Hua Xiaoheng, spoiling is not love. Do you understand? The person who doesn't understand is you. To me, spoiling is love. If I don't love you, why would I spoil you?" Hua Xiaoheng leaned over to unfasten her seatbelt. His eyes were stern. "Get out of the car. We have all night to study this problem." It was the second night, and the monthly tickets had been delivered at 4,500 plus one night. Today was the last day of the double monthly tickets. If you have monthly tickets, please vote. 7 p.m. the third night. Moi. Chapter 784. Could she not get out? Gu Nianji stayed in the car again. Hua Xiaoheng ignored her and got out from the driver's side. He walked over to Gu Nianji's side and opened the door. He said again, "Get out?" Gu Nianji felt a sense of danger. She looked at Hua Xiaoheng's cold expression and gritted her teeth. "I want to go back to school." "Gu Nianji, haven't you always wanted to prove that you've grown up? But you look like a child who hasn't grown up yet. You still want to talk to me about equality?" Hua Xiaoheng knocked on the car door and said threateningly, "Don't make me do it." Gu Nianji became even more furious and blurted out, "I'm a child who hasn't grown up yet? But you're touching me. And what are you?" "Yes, I'm not a good person. Isn't that what you want to say? I'm a pervert." Hua Xiaoheng leaned in and carried her out of the car. "Do you want to taste what it's like to be a real pervert?" Gu Nianji was so angry that she swung her claws at him. Hua Xiaoheng tilted his head to avoid Gu Nianji's fingers, but his neck wasn't so lucky. She scratched it. Gu Nianji's dizzy mind finally cleared up when she saw the blood. She bit her lip and looked at Hua Xiaoheng anxiously. "Why didn't you dodge? Don't tell me you couldn't dodge." Hua Xiaoheng looked down at her for a while and put her down. He leaned against his side and said, "Nianji, if you want people to treat you like an adult, you have to act like one." "How am I not acting like an adult?" Gu Nianji was very unhappy. Her slightly swollen lips pouted again. "You're obviously prejudiced against me." She also knew that she had grown up with Hua Xiaoheng. Perhaps in Hua Xiaoheng's heart, no matter what she did, she would always be the child who listened to him and looked up to him, but she was already an adult. Was he the one who didn't understand, or was she the one who didn't understand? Gu Nianji was so frustrated that she wanted to walk in circles. "I have my opinion and you have yours. We seek common ground." Hua Xiaoheng looked down at her swollen mouth and couldn't look away. He couldn't help but lean down and hold her face in his hands. "I'm going to kiss you again. Don't be angry." This time he didn't suddenly kiss her. He even greeted her in advance, but he was still unreasonable. Gu Nianji loosened her hands and wanted to push him away, but this time, his kiss was extremely gentle. He didn't suck hard or suck hard. He only rubbed his lips against hers. His strength was just right, and the warmth of the kiss went directly from her lips to her heart. The gentler the touch, the more intense the numbness, the more intense the electric shock. Just like when a cold wind blew, people would wrap their coats tightly around themselves. But when the warm spring breeze blew, people would automatically take off their coats and put on beautiful unlined clothes. Before Gu Nianji realized what was going on, she had already wrapped her arms around Hua Xiaoheng's waist and was kissing him back. Hua Xiaoheng's body stiffened for a moment, then he increased the intensity of the kiss. He didn't even limit himself to her lips, but kissed her cheeks, her nose, her forehead, and even her eyes. Gu Nianji only woke up when he was too excited and used too much force. Realizing that she was actually kissing Hua Xiaoheng back, she quickly let go and turned her head to avoid his kiss. She panted slightly and said, "Okay, this is the parking lot. Aren't you afraid that someone will secretly take pictures of you?" Hua Xiaoheng didn't force her. He pressed her head against his chest and said calmly, "I'm not afraid. I'm kissing my wife. What's wrong with that?" Gu Nianji was speechless. The two of them quietly snuggled for a while before Hua Xiaoheng let go of her. He turned back to the car and took out a paper bag with Gu Nianji's pink diamond crown inside. He closed the door and locked the car. He held Gu Nianji's hand with his other hand and walked to the elevator in the parking lot. Gu Nianji didn't refuse or say anything. He held her hand and led her to the 6th floor. Room 602 on the 6th floor was the second-hand house Gu Nianji had bought. She used the key card to open the door. The room was so dark that she couldn't even see her fingers. Hua Xiaoheng pressed a few switches by the wall, and the room suddenly lit up. Gu Nianji's attention was immediately drawn to the room. It was completely different from how she remembered it. The entire room had been refurbished and renovated. The flooring used to be log flooring, and the walls were painted with light-colored waterproof paint. The renovation was very elegant, but the texture of the things couldn't stand up to scrutiny. They were a bit cheap. Gu Nianji noticed it at the time, but thought it was just right for her, so she didn't nitpick. But now that the room had been refurbished, it was immediately different. The flooring was obviously high-quality cherry wood. It was a very warm reddish-brown color, and the grain of the wood was clearly visible. There was a vestibule where she entered the room, so she could no longer see the entire living room as soon as she entered. Hua Xiaoheng opened the shoe cabinet at the vestibule and said, "Change your shoes." Gu Nianji took off her boots and changed into a pair of furry soft-soled slippers. It was the brand she was used to wearing in Hua Xiaoheng's official residence. Walking in from the vestibule, she saw that the entire living room was so-called modern minimalist, but it was simple but not cheap. It took even more effort than the opulence. Hua Xiaoheng had indeed spent a lot of effort to refurbish this house, especially since it only took 2 weeks. Gu Nianji walked around each room. Hua Xiaoheng took her to the bedroom and found the hidden safe at the back of the closet. He told her the password and how to open it, then put her pink diamond crown inside. I'll bring you a brocade box tomorrow. You can put the crown in the brocade box so it'll be better preserved. Gu Nianji nodded, then went to the guest room next to the bedroom to look around. As soon as she entered, she discovered that the only guest room had been renovated into a study. It seemed to be Hua Xiaoheng's things. Gu Nianji walked out of the guest room and knocked on the door. Hua Xiaoheng walked over to take a look. What's the problem? What's with this room? I don't remember wanting a study. Gu Nianji raised a brow. I bought this house myself. Why would a single woman leave a study for a man? Although they were already married, Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng had agreed that their marriage would not be made public until Gu Nianji acknowledged it. Therefore, Hua Xiaoheng couldn't use the fact that they were already married as a reason to ask her. Single women also have suitors and boyfriends. Hua Xiaoheng reminded her. I'm pursuing you. You agreed. Gu Nianji crossed her arms and walked around Hua Xiaoheng a few times. She couldn't help but ask, Hua Xiao, aren't you embarrassed to say something like that? Why would I be embarrassed? Hua Xiaoheng was calm and composed. He walked to the study, sat down and turned on the computer. It was his work computer, so of course it was placed there for convenience. You're only pursuing me, but you've already gotten what you want. Do you know what it means to pursue? Gu Nianji raised her chin. Do you want to ask Brother Xiong how he pursued Chi-Chi? Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. Are you Chi-Chi? No. Am I Big Xiong? Of course not. Then why did you force me to pursue you like other people do? Hua Xiaoheng said without turning his head. At the same time, he turned off the computer and stood up to walk to her. It's already very late. Go take a shower. I'll run the water for you, okay? It was the 3rd watch. Today was the last day of the double monthly votes. Everyone vote if you have them. Moi. Chapter 785. Gu Nianji stood motionless at the door of the study and looked at Hua Xiaoheng quietly. His deep, dark eyes seemed to contain a fire, but it was hidden in a pool of autumn water. What's wrong? Hua Xiaoheng took her hand. Don't you know where the bathroom is? He had just gone to see it, but now he said she didn't know where the bathroom was. Did he think she was a dumb girl? Gu Nianji stared at him and broke free of her hand. She rubbed her left wrist with her right hand and said dryly, if that's the case, I don't want this house anymore. Just treat it as a gift to Hua Xiao to thank you for raising me for so many years. She turned to leave. Hua Xiaoheng didn't expect Gu Nianji to be so stubborn and was slightly taken aback. Seeing that Gu Nianji had already walked to the entrance, Hua Xiaoheng strode after her and grabbed her wrist again. Nianji, stop it. I'm not. Gu Nianji stumbled and almost fell. She leaned back and fell right into Hua Xiaoheng's arms. Hua Xiaoheng wrapped his arms around her from behind. His broad chest was like a mountain, able to shelter her from the wind and rain. Nianji, what do you want? Hua Xiaoheng was a little helpless. Acting out of spite won't solve anything. But forcing me to accept what I don't want won't solve anything either. Gu Nianji didn't struggle anymore. She looked down at Hua Xiaoheng's arms in front of her. They were strong and he could immobilize her with one hand. Hua Xiaoheng opened his mouth to ask her what she didn't want, but he was worried that she would say something she would regret in the future. So he swallowed his words. The girl in his arms was fragile and self-abased, but she was smart and proud. Such contradictory emotions gathered on her and had a mysterious charm. To be honest, Hua Xiaoheng knew that she wasn't actually suitable for him when they first started. In a sense, General Ji, Speaker Long, and his father Hua Guanshan's concerns were all reasonable. In the beginning he was mostly responsible for her. But when feelings developed to a certain extent, it was no longer rational. The two of them had been together for so long, and she wasn't the only one who had fallen in love. After he understood her feelings, he immediately set about the marriage. With Gu Nianji's background, it was almost impossible for her to marry someone like Hua Xiaoheng. But he did everything he could to make the impossible possible. However, Gu Nianji didn't understand these things, and what she cared about wasn't whether or not she could get married. Although she was extremely smart and skilled in her profession, when it came to relationships she was only a 19-year-old girl. Compared to him who was about to turn 30 years old, he did think differently in this regard. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes were as dark as the night sky. He tightened his arms around her and finally compromised. This is your house. I'll take my things away tomorrow. Gu Nianji thought she had misheard Hua Xiaoheng's sudden surrender. A surge of heat rose in her chest, rising all the way to the bottom of her eyes, almost turning into tears. Gu Nianji was stunned for a full minute before she blinked and stopped her tears. She turned around in Hua Xiaoheng's arms and stood facing him. She didn't miss the flash of sadness in the depths of his eyes. After being in the military for so many years, she had gone to the highest intelligence agencies in all major countries. When had Major General Hua of the Huaxia Empire ever given in? He was an iron-blooded man who wouldn't compromise even in a hail of bullets, but he had backed down to this extent in front of her. Gu Nianji really felt guilty. Wasn't she going too far? Had she hurt Hua Xiaoheng by being so resolute? Hua Xiaoheng looked intently at her in his arms. He pursed his lips and continued, "Give me some time. I'll get Big Xiong to pack my things tomorrow." Gu Nianji looked down, her full lips moving. Finally, she whispered, "You can still come over in the future, just like Brother Xiong and Brother Zhe." At least she didn't insist on giving up the house. Hua Xiaoheng breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally managed to coax the little girl. He hugged her tightly and kissed her cheek. "Okay, go take a shower now. I'll run the water for you?" "Okay," Gu Nianji answered obediently. "I'll go get my clothes." Hua Xiaoheng went to the bathroom while Gu Nianji returned to the bedroom to find her pajamas. She opened the closet and immediately saw the black t-shirt she had been using as pajamas. It was Hua Xiaoheng's regular uniform from the army. A brand new stack was placed in the closet's compartment. She grabbed one and a pair of underwear before going to the bathroom. In the bathroom, the water was already filled. Hua Xiaoheng half knelt in front of the bathtub and added essential oil to the water. Gu Nianji sniffed. It was her favorite Bulgarian rose essential oil. Hua Xiaoheng tested the water temperature and turned to see Gu Nianji standing at the bathroom door. She was still holding his long black t-shirt. "It's done. You can take a shower." Hua Xiaoheng stood up. Gu Nianji stepped aside at the door and watched Hua Xiaoheng walk out. She breathed a sigh of relief again. Luckily, Hua Xiaoheng didn't make any further requests. Gu Nianji closed the bathroom door with a smile and began to take a bath. Hua Xiaoheng returned to the study and checked his email. He then sent Yin Shixiang a message to tell him to pack his things tomorrow afternoon. Today was Saturday and tomorrow was Sunday. He still had the whole day. The door to the study wasn't closed. After a while he heard the bathroom door open and close. Hua Xiaoheng knew Gu Nianji was done. He sat in the study and didn't move until Gu Nianji came to say goodnight. He then turned to look at her and said, "It's late. Go to bed." Gu Nianji nodded and smiled as she returned to her bedroom. This was the first night she had spent in the house she had bought. It was truly a memorable day. Gu Nianji returned to bed and pulled back the blankets to lie down. The bed, blankets, and sheets were all the brands and models she was used to using in the Special Operations Forces. Therefore she didn't feel like choosing a bed at all. Soon, her eyelids were heavy and she fell asleep. Gu Nianji woke up in the middle of the night from the fever. She had a dream that she was sleeping next to a grill. In her dream, she kept fanning herself and muttering, "Why is it so hot? Isn't it already the end of October?" In the imperial capital, the end of October and the beginning of November was almost the day when central heating would be installed. Finally, she woke up covered in sweat and found that there was an extra person in her bed. It was Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji was so angry that she had nowhere to vent her anger. How could this person be like this? They had already agreed, but he was going back on his word. But when she saw what Hua Xiaoheng was wearing, she was instantly speechless. Because Hua Xiaoheng hadn't changed his clothes. He was still wearing his military uniform. He was sleeping outside her blankets and hugging her tightly with the blankets. No wonder she felt so hot, but Hua Xiaoheng's hands were a bit cold. The air conditioner in the bedroom would automatically be lowered at night. Because he had to sleep with the blankets, the temperature would be the same as during the day. Gu Nianji was fine with the blankets covering her, but Hua Xiaoheng was only wearing a military shirt and trousers. It was still a bit cold at night. Gu Nianji stared blankly at Hua Xiaoheng's sleeping appearance. His features were exquisite and had a kind of fierce handsomeness. He was especially attractive when he was silent. Now that he was asleep, he didn't have the intimidating aura he had when he was awake, but he was even more handsome and extraordinary. Gu Nianji looked at him for a while and reached out a slender finger to gently push him. Hua Xiaoheng didn't wake up. Gu Nianji pushed him again, this time with more force. Hua Xiaoheng seemed to finally wake up. He didn't even open his eyes as he muttered, "Nianji, stop it." Then his hands lifted the blankets as if they had a mind of their own. He squeezed under the warm blankets and sighed with satisfaction. Gu Nianji froze because the next moment, Hua Xiaoheng had already hugged her in his arms and found a comfortable position. Soon, she could hear his breathing even and gentle, as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. Gu Nianji was speechless and used her hand to push him again. "Hua Xiao, go sleep in the study." "Stop it, I haven't slept for 4 days." Hua Xiaoheng mumbled again, then couldn't wake up at all. Gu Nianji was just about to yell in his ear for him to leave, but when she heard this, she suddenly couldn't yell anymore. He hadn't slept for 4 days. He wasn't made of iron. How could his body take it? At this time, Gu Nianji was no longer worried that Hua Xiaoheng would go wild and do something indescribable to her that she didn't want to. She was only worried that she would wake up Hua Xiaoheng's hard-won sleep. So she obediently lay in Hua Xiaoheng's arms, closed her eyes, and even slowed her breathing for fear of waking him. After counting a few hundred sheep like this, Gu Nianji also fell asleep. Not long after she fell asleep, Hua Xiaoheng opened his eyes and stared fixedly at Gu Nianji. The corners of his mouth twitched, then he hugged her tightly with satisfaction and kissed the top of her head. He rested his cheek on her hair and really fell asleep. He wasn't lying. He really hadn't slept for 4 days. The German Federal Intelligence Service was retaliating against them, and only then did Hua Xiaoheng realize that many of their things were actually in the hands of the Germans. However, the Germans hadn't made a move yet, probably because they were waiting for an opportunity. Hua Xiaoheng spent a lot of effort to transfer all the Special Operations Forces field personnel out of Germany without any casualties. He planned to wait for the news to die down before sending new people over. Fortunately, the information Gu Nianji sent back gave them a deeper understanding of the German Federal Intelligence Service and made it easier to crack their passwords. Of course, the Germans knew that their encrypted files had been stolen, so all the passwords were immediately changed. However, the principles behind their passwords didn't change. Gu Nianji's achievement was no longer in getting them ready-made passwords, but in getting all the system files back for them. Zhao Liangzi led a 20-person cutting-edge technical team to deal with the millions of emails Gu Nianji had sent back day and night. They needed to categorize, integrate, decipher, summarize, and then give the specific intelligence unit in charge to interpret and analyze. None of these things could be done in a day or two. However, for Hua Xiaoheng, not sleeping for 4 days wasn't unbearable. His highest record was not sleeping for 7 days and 7 nights. On Sunday morning, the sun shone through the gauze curtains into Gu Nianji's bedroom. Gu Nianji didn't want to get up and wanted to go back to sleep. She hugged the quilt and arched her body sideways in the quilt. Suddenly she was hit by something hard behind her. This was the first watch. Today was Monday, so everyone had forgotten their recommendation tickets. Monthly tickets of $5,000 at 1 o'clock noon. Third watch at 7 o'clock p.m. P.S. Thank you to Glutinous Rice Candy Cake for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. In the morning, I reminded everyone to try to get the fan title of Cambrian Alliance. It might only cost 5 Chidian coins in the morning. Chapter 786. That thing was pressed against the bottom of her soft and bouncy breasts. She accidentally rubbed against it and it immediately swelled up. The heat was so hot that it felt like it was about to burn. Gu Nianji's eyes widened and her entire body stiffened. She remembered that she found Hua Xiaoheng sleeping outside her blanket in the middle of the night. Her heart softened and she let him slip under the blanket. Men's mornings were really indescribable. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and slowly moved her body to the other side of the bed. Hua Xiaoheng had also woken up at that moment. He lazily pulled Gu Nianji back into his arms and lowered his head to take a deep breath at the back of her neck. His deep, nasal voice was so soothing that it almost made her ears pregnant. "You're awake? Why are you hiding?" Gu Nianji squirmed unhappily but couldn't say it. She could only try her best to move forward and try not to touch Hua Xiaoheng's indescribable part equals underequals. Hua Xiaoheng seemed to understand and chuckled quietly in her ear. His voice was deep and magnetic, full of indescribable temptation. He bit Gu Nianji's earlobe and mumbled, "You're a top student. Haven't you learned about physical hygiene? Normal men have an erection in the morning." Of course Gu Nianji knew what was going on. Even if she wasn't a top student, she had already done it with Hua Xiaoheng. She wouldn't be unreasonable and ask, "What's that hard thing?" That wasn't naive or innocent. That was naive and sweet seduction. but she just felt uncomfortable and didn't want to be so close to him. Since you're already awake, shouldn't you go to the guest room? Gu Nianji closed her eyes and tried to suggest as calmly as possible. I'm tired. I can't move. Hua Xiaoheng sighed and wrapped his arms around her. One arm went under her body and formed a circle with the other to encircle her and hold her in his arms. Sleep with me for a while. As soon as Hua Xiaoheng said that, Gu Nianji recalled how he had mumbled, I haven't slept for 4 days last night. Her heart tightened and she hesitated for a moment before saying quietly, lack of sleep is very harmful to the body. You know? Then why did you stay up late? Hua Xiaoheng didn't open his eyes. He hugged Gu Nianji and took a deep sniff of her neck. What perfume did you use? Who wears perfume to sleep? Gu Nianji shifted her shoulders. Do you think everyone is Marilyn Monroe? You only wear Chanel, no 5 when you sleep? Hua Xiaoheng didn't reply. He began kissing Gu Nianji's exposed shoulder. Her delicate and soft shoulders were complemented by the black t-shirt. Her skin was whiter than snow, and in the bedroom where the first rays of dawn had just appeared, it seemed to be enveloped in a layer of sparkling light. He crossed his arms in front of Gu Nianji, and their bodies were bent into the shape of 2 spoons. He deliberately sucked on her shoulder until a small strawberry mark appeared on her snow-white shoulder. Gu Nianji's heart was about to jump out of her chest, and her breathing became erratic. Panicking, she grabbed Hua Xiaoheng's folded hands and panted, You haven't slept for 4 days? Let's catch up on some sleep. I'm about to get up. Hua Xiaoheng kissed her earlobe and whispered in her ear. Nianji, when do you plan to say yes to my pursuit? Gu Nianji was speechless. Isn't that too soon? You've only been pursuing me for a few days? Gu Nianji immediately felt her heartbeat return to normal. You can't resist anymore? Hua Xiaoheng sighed. Fine, I can continue pursuing you, but you can't hide from me anymore. Gu Nianji was indeed planning on hiding. She had always thought that as long as they didn't see each other and didn't interact, then no matter how deep their relationship was, it would disappear. However, Hua Xiaoheng refused to let go. Although he didn't have much time, he would contact her, call her, or directly see her whenever he had the chance. However, Gu Nianji had just walked out of that self-destructive infatuation, and she really didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. Or rather, she still didn't have the confidence to grow old with a man like Hua Xiaoheng. This man was too good, so good that even she felt inferior. Seeing that she was still silent, Hua Xiaoheng exerted force in his arms and turned her over to face him. With his head tilted, he continued to ask. What are you afraid of? I'm already married to you. What are you still worried about? After marriage we can still get a divorce. Mr. Hua, in modern society, a marriage certificate really doesn't mean anything, Gu Nianji replied calmly. She used her hand to support Hua Xiaoheng's chest and tried not to get too close to him. However, when Hua Xiaoheng tightened his arms, her perky breasts bounced up like a little bunny and bumped into his hard chest. It really hurt a little. Divorce? Nianji, I won't get a divorce, Hua Xiaoheng said unhappily. You won't? But I remember that you said if I still don't want it after 3 years, you'll cancel our marriage. Gu Nianji felt that something was wrong and immediately found a loophole in Hua Xiaoheng's words. Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and thought that his mind really wasn't very clear in the morning. He really had to be vigilant at all times when talking to someone like Gu Nianji, who had a particularly good memory. Yes, but don't forget that you should be with me for these 3 years. If you haven't even tried, then you've been putting me off for the past 3 years. Hua Xiaoheng quickly took control of the conversation. If you keep avoiding it, our 3 years will be postponed. He hugged Gu Nianji tightly and shook her up. Gu Nianji's perky breasts bounced up again and bumped into his chest softly. After a few times, Gu Nianji finally understood what he was doing. Her snow-white face instantly flushed red and she scolded him in a low voice. What are you doing? I'm trying to quench my thirst. Hua Xiaoheng chuckled quietly, then moved closer to her ear and made a request that he knew she wouldn't agree to, but couldn't help but ask. As expected, Gu Nianji groaned. No. Then when can we do it? Can you give me a deadline? Hua Xiaoheng straightened his body and pushed her forward. Look, it really misses you. Gu Nianji felt her face burn. How could Hua Xiaoheng say something so shameful? When can we do it? Hua Xiaoheng continued to ask. I won't force you, but you won't deliberately make things difficult for me, right? Gu Nianji was speechless. After a while, Gu Nianji looked down and pressed her hands against Hua Xiaoheng's chest. She whispered, I haven't agreed to be your girlfriend yet, so you can't do that with me. Then when will you be my girlfriend? Hua Xiaoheng felt like his body was about to explode. He seemed to have overestimated his self-control. Sleeping in the same bed as Gu Nianji made it so hard for him to control himself. I said I'll think about it. You can continue pursuing me. Gu Nianji looked at Hua Xiaoheng and suddenly smiled. Her large black eyes flashed as she said slyly, "She'll be yours when I get her." It was the second update, and the monthly ticket of 5,000 plus updates had arrived. Today was Monday, so they had forgotten the recommendation list. The third update was at 7 p.m. Chapter 787. At that moment, Hua Xiaoheng remembered what he had said to Gu Nianji back then, "Come flirt with me. If you succeed, I'll be yours." Gu Nianji's words were almost exactly the same as his back then. Was the little girl taking revenge now? Hua Xiaoheng wanted to laugh, but when he thought about it carefully, he couldn't let it go. It was as if a small hand had appeared in his hardened heart, constantly scratching and making his heart itch. Just when he couldn't take it anymore, it disappeared. She was right in front of him, but she had a serious expression at such a charming moment. She was like the sparkling dew on the willow branch in the Guanyin Bodhisattva's vase. Fresh, weak, but full of unimaginable vitality. "Okay, if I succeed, you'll be mine. Before I succeed, you can't be with anyone else." Hua Xiaoheng kissed Gu Nianji's mouth and kissed her hard. "If you don't say anything, I'll take it as a silent agreement." He then lifted the blankets and got out of bed to go to the bathroom. Gu Nianji was angry and amused at the same time. She thought to herself, "If you don't say anything, I'll take it as a silent agreement." This person was always too much. Hua Xiaoheng stayed in the bathroom for a long time, so long that Gu Nianji thought he might have fallen asleep in the bathtub again. Gu Nianji thought that if she didn't sleep for 4 days and 4 nights, she would probably fall asleep standing on the road. She quickly put on her shoes and went to the bathroom door to knock. "Hua Xiao, are you done?" Hua Xiaoheng was at a critical juncture. As soon as he heard Gu Nianji's voice, his hand trembled. He closed his eyes and let the aftertaste of release flow through his body. He said lazily, "Yeah, I'll shower right away." Then she heard the sound of water running in the shower. Gu Nianji pondered for a moment and came back to her senses. Her face was a bit red, but she tried her best to remain calm. She covered her head with the blankets and continued to sleep. Although she couldn't sleep, she still kept her eyes closed on the bed. After a while, she heard the bathroom door open. It was Hua Xiaoheng coming out of the shower. Gu Nianji lifted the blankets to look and suddenly felt like her nose was going to bleed. Hua Xiaoheng wasn't wearing a bathrobe. He only had a white towel wrapped around his waist. His skin was a shiny brown in the morning light. His shoulders were broad and strong, but his waistline was slim and strong. 2 distinct mermaid lines wound around his 8-pack and went straight down to the towel around his waist. Below the waist were all legs, slender and straight, containing tremendous explosive power. Gu Nianji quickly closed her eyes and said, "You can wear my pajamas." Anyway, her pajamas were his t-shirt, so there was no problem wearing it. Hua Xiaoheng smiled. "Yeah, couple's pajamas." Gu Nianji's eyes flew open and she couldn't help but want to punch the bed. She knew that she shouldn't have been so kind. Hua Xiaoheng opened the closet and found a black t-shirt to put on. He then went to the study next door to find some clothes he had left there to change into. After putting on his underwear, he brought a box over and put his daily necessities and clothes into it. He carried the box to Gu Nianji's bedroom and placed it in her closet. Gu Nianji slept on the bed with her back to him and covered herself from head to toe in the blankets. She had no idea what he was doing. Closing the closet door, Hua Xiaoheng returned to the bed and pulled the blankets away to lie down again. The pleasant smell of cool water filled the blankets. Gu Nianji really liked the smell of this male perfume. The shower gel she had bought for Hua Xiaoheng was from this brand. She didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to also prepare a set of these things and put them here. "Didn't you take a shower? Why are you still sleeping?" Gu Nianji was unhappy and turned to see the black t-shirt Hua Xiaoheng was wearing. It was exactly the same as what she was wearing. She wanted to take it off immediately. But seeing Hua Xiaoheng's meaningful gaze, how could she dare to take it off? "I'm sleepy. I'll sleep a bit more." Hua Xiaoheng pulled her into his arms and closed his eyes. "I'm very happy that you can let me wear couple's pajamas with you." Gu Nianji couldn't help rolling her eyes. "This is the only thing I have here that you can wear. Do you want me to wear my nightgown?" Hua Xiaoheng chuckled. Still not admitting it? Little liar. This kind of intimate address was like returning to the time when the two of them were sweet. At that time, she had been satisfied looking up to him with all her heart. She should have always maintained an attitude of looking up to him but keeping a distance. Then she wouldn't have been so sad and disappointed later. Gunyanji's mood sank. She also closed her eyes and said very sincerely, "I really didn't. You're thinking too much." Hua Xiaoheng patted her back casually and didn't argue with her. He changed the topic and said, "Why have you been so busy lately? Why are you in such a hurry?" Gunyanji's heart skipped a beat. Hua Xiaoheng still knew her the best. "I want to graduate early. I told you before, but it's been decided recently." Gunyanji turned her body. "Wait for me to work hard for 4 months. Now only 3 months. After the spring festival I can graduate. Can you handle it?" Hua Xiaoheng opened his eyes and carefully looked at her face. Her skin was flawless and translucent. Because she was young, her skin was fresh in the morning after a good night's sleep. It was like a freshly peeled lychee. It was so tender that he could see the sweetness, and he couldn't help but want to take a bite. Her eyebrows were jade even without makeup, and her long eyelashes were dark and dense. They covered the pair of big eyes that he loved and hated at the same time. Her small nose bridge was high and straight, and the bridge of her nose was slightly curved. Paired with her curvy lips and shallow dimples at the corners of her lips, she looked like a meticulously painted beauty. And every inch of this beauty's body, Hua Xiaoheng felt like the creator had created her according to his favorite appearance. Although he knew that Gunyanji had been staying up late recently, there were no dark circles under her eyes, and her skin wasn't sickly pale. Instead it was glowing and fair. With a little stimulation, her snow-like cheeks looked like they had a layer of rouge on them. Her rosy complexion radiated from inside out. Not only was she unparalleled in beauty, but she also looked very healthy. Gunyanji gradually blushed under Hua Xiaoheng's stare. She opened her eyes and met Hua Xiaoheng's deep gaze. She suddenly mustered up the courage to ask, "Hua Xiao, I don't think you're the kind of person who would cling to someone after a breakup." "Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be to anyone else," Hua Xiaoheng replied calmly. He didn't fall for Gunyanji's trick. "Except for you. Am I that good?" Gunyanji was a bit proud and narcissistic but also a bit nervous. She looked down and didn't dare to meet Hua Xiaoheng's eyes. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her and said nonchalantly, "Yeah. I invested so much effort in you. You don't want to see me lose everything, do you? You treat relationships like business?" Gunyanji's face darkened. When she looked up again, her eyes were filled with anger. This anger made her beauty even more vivid. Hua Xiaoheng lifted her chin and looked deeply into her eyes. "You're the one who's calculative with me. I have no choice but to play along to the end." It was the third watch. Today was Monday. I forgot the recommendation ticket list for my friends. P.S. Friends who want the Cambrian Alliance fan title can claim it at midnight. That's when the system has just reset. I heard that the first thing to claim is the 5 treasures. Chapter 788. So in the end it was all her fault? Gunyanji felt very uncomfortable. She thought of all the things she had done for Hua Xiaoheng, the life and death she had gone through for him. The scenes replayed in her mind, and in the end she could only say the word petty. She really couldn't bear such love. Gunyanji's body suddenly stiffened, and she grabbed Hua Xiaoheng's arm with both hands and pushed him away. But Hua Xiaoheng was too strong and she couldn't move him at all. Hua Xiaoheng keenly sensed that Gunyanji's mood had dropped again, and it was even worse than last night. He quickly thought about what he had just said, and suddenly understood that the little girl was being stubborn again. Or maybe the way he had spoken was wrong. He knew that she was at a sensitive and easily angered stage, and anything he said would go over her mind a dozen times. It was hard not to think the wrong way. Hua Xiaoheng sighed inwardly and hugged Gunyanji even tighter. "Little darling, what are you thinking about?" Gunyanji pursed her lips and pouted. "What else can I think about? You said I'm petty and it's all my fault, so it's all my fault? Since I'm making things difficult for you, you don't have to brush me off. I said it before, it's better to get the pain over with. Just because I was the one who suggested breaking up, you're always unwilling to be dumped, right? I'll give you a chance and you'll break up with me, okay?" Before she could finish, Hua Xiaoheng had already kissed her lips again to stop her from speaking. Gunyanji whimpered and pushed Hua Xiaoheng away forcefully, but as soon as she opened her mouth, Hua Xiaoheng leaned on her again and kissed her lips again, blocking her mouth completely. She struggled with all her hands and feet and was quite strong. Hua Xiaoheng had no choice but to clamp her hands on the pillow, and his legs sandwiched Gunyanji between them. His entire body was on top of her, and he finally managed to tame Gunyanji, who was baring her fangs and brandishing her claws like a little wild cat. Gun Yinji was so tired that she was panting. Hua Xiaoheng was like a mountain on top of her and she couldn't breathe. But when she had the chance she could still kick Hua Xiaoheng. The two of them wrestled on the bed. Of course, Hua Xiaoheng couldn't be serious with Gun Yinji, so he only used 20 to 30% of his strength. He played with her to vent her frustrations, but at the same time, he had to prevent her from hurting herself. Only when she was tired and sweaty would she feel better. Gun Yinji, on the other hand, became more energetic as the battle went on. She didn't care if Hua Xiaoheng was really backing down or pretending to back down. Anyway, she was in a bad mood right now. She was going to beat someone up to vent her frustration. She raised her leg and kicked between Hua Xiaoheng's legs. Hua Xiaoheng didn't even have to dodge. He easily caught her calf with one hand and stopped her from kicking again. However, Gun Yinji took advantage of Hua Xiaoheng's grip on her left leg to flip over. Using her left leg as a fulcrum, she somersaulted off the bed and soared into the air to straddle Hua Xiaoheng's neck. This girl's close combat grappling technique was pretty good. Hua Xiaoheng got excited and started sparring with her on the bed. He held her waist with one hand and lifted her butt with the other. Just as he was about to lift her off, Gun Yinji used all her strength to wrap her arms around his neck. Hua Xiaoheng's fingers moved and poked the numb tendons on Gun Yinji's elbow. He released her arms from around his neck and growled softly. He increased the force of his lower body and used 50% of his strength to lift her up and roll onto the bed with her in his arms. Gun Yinji punched and kicked to push Hua Xiaoheng away. Hua Xiaoheng had no choice but to use even more strength to suppress her. The pitiful bed creaked as they tossed and turned. Not long after, a loud crashing sound could be heard. The bed collapsed. Gun Yinji couldn't stop herself in time and was about to fall to the ground. Hua Xiaoheng reached out to hug her and rolled off the collapsed bed to become Gun Yinji's meat cushion. Gun Yinji sat on Hua Xiaoheng's waist and looked up at the collapsed bed. She was embarrassed and angry. She vented all her anger on Hua Xiaoheng. "It's all your fault. It's all your fault. What kind of stupid bed did you buy? Fake shoddy goods? I want compensation." Hua Xiaoheng knew it wasn't the bed's problem. He didn't control his strength well and exceeded the bed's tolerance. However, Gun Yinji was angry, so Hua Xiaoheng wisely didn't reason with her. He only carried her up and pressed her arms and legs. He asked, "You're not hurt anywhere, right?" "No." Gun Yinji was still angry. She turned her head and said, "It's okay even if you're hurt. It'll be fine in a few days. I'm a talented girl." Hua Xiaoheng suddenly felt sad. He hugged her and didn't speak for a long time. Gun Yinji was shocked by Hua Xiaoheng's sudden warmth. She blinked her big eyes and looked at Hua Xiaoheng in confusion. She didn't understand what was wrong with this man. He had just fought with a little girl like her. How shameless. Hua Xiaoheng held her hand and let out a long sigh. His eyes softened, and his voice became even lower and sweeter. "It was my fault today. How do you want to punish me?" Hua Xiao actually admitted his mistake? Yesterday he compromised and backed down, and today he apologized. Did the sun rise from the west? Or was the feng shui of this house especially good for her? Gun Yinji blinked and quickly glanced at the window. No, the sun still rose from the east. "It's not my fault?" Gun Yinji looked at the collapsed bed and felt a headache coming on. "I didn't think you were wrong in the first place. You said that other people think too much, but you think the most." Hua Xiaoheng took her hand and sat on the sofa. His attitude was very sincere. "You can't wait to distort and misunderstand every word I say. Tell me, isn't this unfair to me?" Gun Yinji touched her earlobe and didn't speak. She knew that she was indeed venting her anger on him. Ever since the breakup failed and she was tricked into signing the marriage certificate, she had been holding back her anger. "If you have something to say, talk it out." Hua Xiaoheng saw her habitually pouting and couldn't help but carry her on his lap. He leaned over and kissed her pouting lips. Such beautiful lips are for kissing, not for throwing a tantrum. Gun Yinji quickly pursed her lips into a straight line and didn't reveal anything for him to kiss. Hua Xiaoheng kissed her chin. His voice was slow and soothing as he gently caressed her back, which was bristling with anger, and let her lean into his arms. In order to not make her feel awkward, Hua Xiaoheng thought of a topic to divert her attention. "Tell me about what happened in Germany." "Didn't I already tell you? I have to start from the beginning in detail." Hua Xiaoheng tapped the tip of her delicate nose. "I read the Special Operations Forces operation report and felt that there were still some problems. According to the intelligence from Germany, the 2 Special Operations Forces field agents who were killed weren't killed by the Federal Intelligence Service." Gun Yinji quickly sat up. This was what she was most concerned about, and it was also what she wanted to avenge them from the bottom of her heart. Might not be them. Gun Yinji became serious. It's like this. That day I left Tina's bar and met two people in the woods. They said they were sent by the Special Operations Forces to find me and even showed me their IDs. I knew they were fake the moment I saw them. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. Yes, our field agents don't carry IDs on them. Then I hit them with a stick, turned around and ran. I hid in the woods and heard Alice come with his men to kill the two imposters. Then I heard them say that there were two more bodies in the woods. If I guessed correctly, those two were the real field agents, but they were already killed by the two imposters. Gun Yinji choked up. Aren't they very capable? How could they be killed so easily? Hua Xiaoheng muttered to himself. He patted her back subconsciously and said, since they were able to follow those two field agents to their destination and kill them by surprise, then there must be something that can gain the trust of those two field agents. You're saying there's still a mole? Gun Yinji frowned and thought about it. Yi Zitan is only a military doctor. Being able to send out photos of those two was already the best she could do. Yes, I also think there's still a mole. Hua Xiaoheng's dark eyes narrowed and flashed with a cold light. But this person hid it too well. There's no flaw to this day. This person's power isn't limited to the Special Operations Forces. Gun Yinji analyzed with him. I feel that this person can mobilize too many resources, and his plans are meticulous and rigorous. The only mistake is me. She pointed at herself. If it weren't for my special constitution, his plan would have succeeded perfectly. Hua Xiaoheng kissed her slender fingers. Yes, in the entire country only Qinlai and I know about your constitution. You can completely trust him and me. Professor, he seems to know about it too. Gun Yinji hesitated but still said it. I feel that Professor he should know a lot about me. But he doesn't say much, so I don't know what he's worried about. He Jichu knows, but he's also keeping it a secret for you. I don't think you need to worry about that. Hua Xiaoheng's brows furrowed imperceptibly. But if he knows about your background, why won't he say it? It's not that he won't say it, right? Gun Yinji thought about it. Didn't he remind the Gu family? Maybe he has some difficulties? You're very understanding of him, aren't you? Hua Xiaoheng was a little displeased, but he only said it lightly. Gun Yinji immediately felt it. She narrowed her eyes and raised her chin. She snorted and said, Professor, he saved my life several times. Of course I have to think on the bright side. Then you have to think on the bright side? Hua Xiaoheng moved dangerously close to her. You're very biased, aren't you, Mrs. Hua? Of course you're not. Gun Yinji blurted out. As soon as she said it, she knew she'd said the wrong thing. She was so upset that she almost wanted to bang her head on the ground. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes flashed, and a smile gradually bloomed in his eyes. The uneasiness and anxiety that had enveloped his chest ever since Gun Yinji wanted to break up completely disappeared. He hugged Gun Yinji and bounced his legs. So Mrs. Hua loves Mr. Hua deeply, and is also very responsible for him. I understand. Gun Yinji couldn't help but roll her eyes 100 times in her heart. She snorted coldly. Mr. Hua, don't add drama to yourself. The two of us are in the past now, understand? This was the second watch. Reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. At noon, the monthly votes were 5,500 plus updates. At 7 p.m. the third watch. P.S. Reminder for everyone to also vote for the records of Cambrian every day. Thank you. I received the fan title Cambrian Alliance, and now it seemed like I was going to receive 50 treasure balls. This damn system was really complicated and I didn't understand it anymore. Chapter 789. Yeah, if the old doesn't go, the new won't come. The past doesn't matter. We're focused on the present and the future. Hua Xiaoheng kissed Gun Yinji's cheek again. Are you hungry? Let's go out for breakfast? Although the house had been renovated and daily necessities had been arranged, there was no food prepared. The fridge was empty except for bottled water. Hua Xiaoheng had originally planned to go shopping with Gun Yinji and buy groceries to cook for her. Gun Yinji didn't want to go out with Hua Xiaoheng. She stood up from his lap and frowned. I'm going to shower and then go back to school. Gun Yinji felt extremely awkward at the thought of the collapsed bed. She didn't want to face anyone at this time. She just wanted to go back to her own little world. Hua Xiaoheng looked up at her quietly for a while before nodding. Okay, go shower first, then I'll take you back. Gun Yinji was sweaty from playing with Hua Xiaoheng that morning. She couldn't stand the sticky feeling. She went to the bathroom to shower. Hua Xiaoheng fiddled with his phone in the bedroom for a while before calling Yin Shixiang. We'll be leaving soon. When you come over to pack up, remember to book another bed. Just make sure it's the same as the previous one. Yin Shixiang had just returned from his morning exercise and was eating breakfast. He nodded repeatedly with his Bluetooth headset on. Okay, Hua Xiao. He then asked, will the bed be in the guest room? It had originally been a guest room, but Hua Xiaoheng had made it into a study during the renovations. There wasn't a proper bed in the study. There was only a dual-purpose sofa that could be opened up as a bed. Bedroom. Hua Xiaoheng hung up. Yin Shixiang's brows were furrowed. Wasn't there a bed in the bedroom? Why did he need to order another one? But Hua Xiao was the chief. He had the final say. Yin Shixiang immediately ordered another bed and had it delivered to the Hepingli address. Gu Nianji came out of the shower and changed into a simple sweater. She carried her small bag and saw that Hua Xiaoheng had already changed. He stood ramrod straight in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows with both hands in his trouser pockets. He looked at the scenery outside and didn't know what to think. I can go back myself. Gu Nianji said dryly. It's only a few steps. I can walk back. I'll walk you out. Hua Xiaoheng turned around to look at her before walking over. The two of them didn't speak again. They entered the elevator one after the other and went straight to the parking lot. Then they drove to Gu Nianji's school. Not long after they left, Yin Shixiang came with 2 orderlies. After entering the house, Yin Shixiang instructed 2 orderlies to pack up Hua Xiaoheng's things in the study before he went to the bedroom. He was a little curious. Why did they order another bed for the bedroom? Could it be that Gu Nianji didn't allow Hua Xiao to get on her bed, so he had to prepare another one? Good job, Nianji. Yin Shixiang secretly gave Gu Nianji a thumbs up in his heart for being so daring. He pushed open the bedroom door and slowly walked in. As soon as he entered the room, he saw a collapsed bed. Yin Shixiang quickly whistled and imagined countless erotic scenes. TSK, the battle is too intense. Hua Xiao isn't taking it easy either. The bed was made of imported solid wood. He knew very well how sturdy it was. But such a sturdy bed could be collapsed by the two of them in one night. Poor little Nianji. Hua Xiao would probably send her to the hospital by now. Yin Shixiang smiled lasciviously as he thought about it. The 2 orderlies cleaned up the study and went to the bedroom to ask Yin Shixiang what to do next. They also saw the collapsed bed, and the expressions on their faces became very interesting. Their eyebrows and eyes seemed to be talking. Yin Shixiang laughed and kicked them. What are you thinking about? That's amazing. Is it Hua Xiao? The 2 orderlies winked and pointed at the collapsed bed. Of course. Why else would he be the chief and you're just an orderly? Yin Shixiang rolled his eyes. Hurry up and clean up this collapsed bed and take it away. I've already ordered a new bed and it'll be delivered soon. Well, Colonel Yin, can we get the bed seller to reinforce it? One of the orderlies suggested. After all, it won't be good for the chief if he keeps changing beds. What's wrong with that? He can change a bed every day. Yin Shixiang knocked the orderly's head. What effect? I'm telling you, if this gets out, it'll be the 2 of you responsible. When that happens, I won't find anyone else and will directly lock you up. Send you to military court. The 2 soldiers immediately cowered. Colonel Yin, we definitely won't say anything. This is discipline. We won't violate discipline. Good that you know. Yin Shixiang glared at them. Alright, hurry up and clean up. Carry it down and put it in the truck. The 2 orderlies silently began to clean up. Yin Shixiang also helped them lift the bed frame. Although the bed had collapsed, its weight hadn't decreased at all. The mattress was fine, but the bed frame underneath had directly collapsed into 2 pieces. Yin Shixiang squatted on the ground and studied the cracks for a long time. His final conclusion was that only the pressure of a jack could cause the bed frame to collapse like this. Hua Xiaoheng drove but didn't directly return to the B University campus. He parked the car in front of a porridge shop and went in to buy a breakfast set. He brought it to the car for Gu Nianji. Eat first. Don't starve. Gu Nianji was indeed a bit hungry. She originally wanted to refuse, but as soon as she smelled the food, her stomach began to growl. Hua Xiaoheng opened the box of porridge. You want me to feed you? Gu Nianji was greatly embarrassed. She quickly took it and sat in the passenger seat to eat. She asked Hua Xiaoheng, what about you? You're not eating? Hua Xiaoheng shook his head. I don't have an appetite. Gu Nianji wanted to say something but held back. She silently took out a small beef bun from the breakfast set and handed it to Hua Xiaoheng. Eat one. It'll fill your stomach. Hua Xiaoheng opened his mouth and bit the entire beef bun in her hand. The beef bun was small and exquisite, only slightly larger than a soup bun. Gu Nianji drank half a bowl of porridge, 2 beef buns and a cup of soy milk. Hua Xiaoheng took the remaining half bowl of porridge and ate it directly. He also cleaned up the remaining snacks. Then he got out of the car to throw away the trash before driving away with Gu Nianji. It was around 10 a.m. when they returned to Gu Nianji's dorm. Hua Xiaoheng didn't want to leave immediately. He had nothing to say, so he picked up the previous topic and continued to ask Gu Nianji, "Nianji, think about it again. What other strange places are there in Germany? Why did you travel to the Konig Sea alone? I've never seen you enjoy sightseeing so much before." As a new generation of online children, Gu Nianji's biggest hobby was actually to stay at home and surf the internet. She grew up with Hua Xiaoheng, so he knew this very well. Speaking of this, Gu Nianji remembered and turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng. She said somewhat embarrassedly, "Hua Xiao, someone used your name to send me a box of Hermes scarves as a birthday present. It was sent from Germany. I thought you were in Germany, so I went to Germany to file a lawsuit." Hua Xiaoheng was slightly taken aback. "What did you say?" This is the second monthly vote of 5,500 plus 1 update. Let me remind you of your monthly votes and recommendation votes. Third update at 7 p.m. P.S. Sorry I'm 20 minutes late. I was held up by something. Chapter 790. I said someone used your name to send me a scarf from Germany. Otherwise, how could I have been tricked into going to the Konig Sea by a text? Gu Nianji pouted again with a depressed expression. Now that she thought about it, it was the most embarrassing thing she had ever done. If she hadn't been blinded by Hua Xiao's beauty, how could she have fallen into the enemy's trap? At that time, she was infatuated whenever she saw the name Hua Xiao. That was why she wanted to see Hua Xiao so much and didn't tell anyone that she was going to the Konig Sea to see Hua Xiao in order to keep it a secret. Gu Nianji didn't tell anyone about this detail because she felt it was too embarrassing. However, even though she had been kidnapped and tortured, she had always held on to an optimistic spirit as she battled with the people who wanted to harm her. This was because she firmly believed that Hua Xiaoheng was her strong shield. No matter when or where, as long as she was in danger, he would definitely come to her rescue. If he couldn't come, it must be because he had more important work to do. Between national interests and his own safety, Gu Nianji could understand Hua Xiaoheng's choice and never thought to blame him. Hua Xiaoheng was a soldier, so Gu Nianji also understood that he had to sacrifice some personal interests as a soldier. That belief had been completely shattered by the image of Hua Xiaoheng and Tang Guiren together as time went by and she had been pushed to the brink of death by the electric shock. How the F***ck is this a national interest? Gu Nianji truly understood the difference between her and Hua Xiaoheng at that moment. She realized that in those people's hearts, her value was not as high as Tang Guiren's because she was an orphan with no family background and wasn't part of their circle. She still clearly remembered her anger, grievance, and inferiority complex. At that moment, her many years of faith were also shattered. She had always treated Hua Xiaoheng as her faith. At that time, she suddenly realized that the sacrifice she thought was worthless. From then on, she had deep doubts about her relationship with Hua Xiaoheng and became seriously uncertain about their future. She would rather be the one who exited early than face the end of the song and the dispersing of the crowd in the future. So the first thing she did after returning was to break up. Since they were breaking up, she naturally wouldn't mention a word about falling into a trap because of the scarf Hua Xiaoheng sent. Because it was too embarrassing. However, Hua Xiaoheng was silent for a while. His gaze was very deep. He looked at Gu Nianji and asked, "Hermes scarves sent from Germany?" "It was sent to my dormitory." Gu Nianji smiled sheepishly and quickly said, "It's still in my dorm room, but I kept it to remind myself not to do stupid things again. It's not that I still have feelings for you." Hua Xiaoheng was silent for a while before asking, "Then did you receive a box of Hermes scarves from France?" Gu Nianji shook her head. "No. Why do you ask?" Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and said dryly, "When I was in the United States, I specially went to the Hermes website in France to order a birthday present for you. It was a Hermes scarf, and it was sent directly to your apartment in the 3rd Ring Road." Gu Nianji's eyes widened. You. Say that again. Did you really send me a Hermes scarf?" Hua Xiaoheng nodded and didn't say anything, but his dark eyes showed that he was also confused. "You didn't receive the Hermes scarves I sent from France, but you received a Hermes scarf from Germany. Was it also a birthday present?" Hua Xiaoheng confirmed again with a solemn expression because this detail was too important. It was so important that he might have to completely overturn the direction of his previous inferences. Gunyinji was still in shock. You really, still remember to buy me a birthday present when you were in the United States? Didn't you say, when you were on a mission you couldn't have any personal activities? So later she realized she had fallen into someone else's trap and deeply regretted it because she didn't listen to Hua Xiaoheng. She actually believed that Hua Xiaoheng would send her a gift when he was on a mission and ask her to meet up. I can't, Hua Xiaoheng murmured and suddenly hugged Gunyinji tightly. I violated the rules, so he was immediately punished. Gunyinji was so close to leaving him forever. Hua Xiaoheng felt a lingering fear, and the sudden sweat on his back immediately soaked his black t-shirt. But I didn't receive it. Gunyinji clenched her fists. Where did you send it to? Oh, you just said it was to the San Juan apartment. I haven't been there, have you? Hua Xiaoheng had been there but only to see if Gunyinji was there. He didn't even think about the uncollected package. Wait, I'll call the property management at the San Juan apartment first. Gunyinji took out her phone from her bag and immediately called the property management at the San Juan apartment. Although it was a Sunday, the property management at the San Juan apartment didn't take holidays, and there were people on duty during the weekend. After the call connected, Gunyinji quickly asked, May I ask if you received a package from France more than a month ago? To Gunyinji in room 1801 of Building 5? After the property management checked, they denied, No, we didn't receive any package to room 1801 of Building 5. Whether it was domestic or foreign, there wasn't any. That was strange. Gunyinji looked at Hua Xiaoheng. Are you sure you successfully placed the order? Hua Xiaoheng took out his phone and directly checked the French Hermes official account. There was a shipping record for his purchase there. After checking, he was also stunned. He remembered clearly filling in a French shipping address, but now his account had changed to a German shipping address. The shipping address had also changed from the San Juan apartment in the imperial capital to Gunyinji's B University dormitory. Also, the German shipping address was in the Roslau area of Germany, which was also the location of Li Haiqing's case. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Hua Xiaoheng's face was livid. He had never been played like this before. Without another word, Hua Xiaoheng immediately called the VIP service line on the French Hermes official website. This was also a 24-hour service line. Every VIP customer of his level had their own dedicated service line. Hello, I would like to check why the shipping address for the order I placed on the official website more than a month ago changed. You must give me an explanation. Hua Xiaoheng spoke in fluent French, his tone very serious. The customer service on the other end hurriedly said, Mr. Hua, please wait a moment. We'll check right away. Hua Xiaoheng was angry and the consequences were very serious, especially for an industry that sold luxury goods like Hermes. Hua Xiaoheng was their biggest customer and their biggest financial backer. The best programmer in the IT department of Hermes headquarters was immediately called over. After a busy day, it only took 15 minutes to find the reason. They explained to Hua Xiaoheng, Mr. Hua, our system malfunctioned at the time, so your shipping address accidentally changed to a German address. However, I've already checked for you. The item has already been sent, and Miss Gu has already signed for it. Hua Xiaoheng put down the phone, but his expression did not relax. Instead, it became even more serious. He looked at Gunyinji and asked in a low voice, That box of stuff, where did you put it? In my dormitory. Gunyinji was very confused. But this doesn't make sense. Even if the system malfunctioned, it shouldn't have malfunctioned so intelligently. If only the shipping address had changed, then it would have made a little bit of sense. But even the address of the recipient had changed, and it was an address thousands of miles away in the Wuxia Empire. This was too intelligent. Are you sure it was a system malfunction? Not a human error? She had always thought it was a series of traps. From the beginning, the silk scarf sent from Germany was a trap. Then she received the text message from Hua Xiaoheng in Munich. It was all part of someone else's plan and it was all fake. But now it seemed that this series of traps was even more sophisticated than she had expected. It was the third watch. A reminder for your monthly and recommendation votes. Good night, dear friends. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.